Hello gamers from around the world, this is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the World of Gaming, your number one podcast where we discuss everything that happens in gaming. We talk about games, news, technology, and everything that a gamer is interested in. And Dutch, today we have an awesome show with some really cool topics. But first, how are you doing? And welcome.
Yes, I'm doing well. I'm in the middle of deciding what to play next. That's my big debate. That's what I'm doing. I mean, it's not just a game that I need to play next. I need to find a long-term game to stream, which is even more difficult because I was playing Starfield.
Yeah.
And I think streaming-wise, I've done as much as I can do for that game on stream. That is interesting.
Okay.
I've done all the missions, I've done the story, I've done the side quests. Shipbuilding isn't interesting on there. Base building isn't interesting on there. I think no one really cares about watching that. They just want the action stuff, and I've done all that. So I've paused that game now. I'm on New Game Plus. I can play that in the background. I don't have there isn't another big RPG to play, so I'm really debating on which one to do. And it's maybe look at getting Final Fantasy 16 and playing through that.
Yeah.
Or maybe give Elder Scrolls Online a chance because I've got that and haven't really played through it.
Oof, that is also a good shout. I mean, I've been debating Final Fantasy 16 with myself because I haven't. It's one of the titles I definitely want to play from this year, and I haven't had a chance just yet. But I'm looking for a Black Friday deal here. So, but Elder Scrolls Online, man, I've been debating that with myself too because it looks fantastic and it is apparently really easy to get into, which is
co-op. And it's
co-op. It's co-op. Yeah, we could play together on one of the streams.
Yes. Join
me. Interesting. But we have so much more to talk about here today. We will, of course, discuss the Game Awards and the, questionable nominations and things that happened. Man, it's not just the nominations that were interesting. Some of the reaction from the developers, but we will get to that. We will talk, of course, about the 3-year anniversary of the current gen consoles. This week, the Xbox Series X and S turned 3 years old. The PS5 turned 3 years old. Well, actually, tomorrow. Here in Germany, it's tomorrow. I know it came out a week earlier or so in the US. So, we will definitely talk about that, but there's also a lot of interesting game news. We got some really good insight in Clockwork Revolution, man. We'll discuss it. Suicide Squad, Baldur's Gate 3, Remedy's next game, the co-op game. We got some interesting news on that. So lots of game talk and so much more. But first, I need to also welcome our awesome community. The chat is already filling up with a lot of familiar names here. Great to see you guys. Hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening after the fact, either here on YouTube or on the podcast services, like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, welcome to you guys too. I know we have a growing fan base there as well, a growing community there as well, and we appreciate you all. We hope that you enjoy the world of gaming each and every week, and if you do listen on the podcast services, it would be absolutely awesome if you guys to drop a review and leave your thoughts about the podcast there. And if you're here on YouTube, of course you know the drill. It would be awesome of you guys to hit the like and subscribe button if you're new here. But, Dutch, before we discuss this mess of the Game Awards, and I can't find a better word to sugarcoat it. It's already sugarcoating if you call that a mess. Before we discuss that, I have so much to say on that. Let me hear what have you been playing lately. And of course, before you start, also, guys in the chat, drop your games that you have been playing. We want to hear what you've been up to. So that was what kept you busy, man.
Yeah, so I've been in between a few games. So obviously last week I mentioned that I'd finished Jusant. Um, I've also been playing Kena Bridge of Spirits. I
Yeah.
streamed that.
What did you think?
I'm actually really enjoying it. You know, it's a really good game. Really
Have you
good game. I
finished
like
it?
No, I'm still playing all the way through it. I can tell you
Okay.
how long I've got on it. Well, I can't actually. And now it's going to play music.
Well,
I've got 8 trophies in it. I can tell you that. 15 because I've played 4 hours of it.
all right.
That's
All
what I've
right.
played.
Yeah.
4 hours.
So the game is still easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. It's got a good. It's nice little world. It's not massively open world, which is good. It's kind of semi-linear. It has a little bit of an open world to it. Good little bit of combat. Nice puzzles. Graphically very nice. Music's really nice. The characters, the animations, the story's really cool. So no, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm gonna play through it and finish it.
All right.
I was thoroughly enjoying that. But yeah, then comes the big debate on what to play next. So Keen, I'll keep us occupied for a bit. I'm playing through Ghost of Tsushima again.
You can never go wrong with that, man.
Started it when I first got the PlayStation 4. Got a little bit into it, and then God of War Ragnarok came out, and I was like, right, okay, like everything's down. God of War Ragnarok, so I don't play
the typical FOMO leaf of games. Yeah. I know that
and
all
then
too
Hogwarts
well.
came out, and I was like, right, I'm playing through Hogwarts instead, and then so that was like on the back burner for ages, and then I obviously most recently, only like a month or 2 ago, 2 months ago, I got the PlayStation 5 eventually. So I upgraded all the games I had to PlayStation 5 versions. So now I can just start Ghost from scratch, which is what I've done. And I've got a few hours into it now. So I'm playing through Ghost and Kena as it stands, but I need something new to play on Xbox. And that's where I'm waiting. So the next one on Xbox I'll be playing is Avatar. But as I said, I think I'll be starting. Obviously, I'm still playing Cyberpunk. I'm still playing Phantom Liberty. But I think before Avatar and then after Avatar, I'll be playing Elder Scrolls Online. I think I've installed it. It's there. It's just getting ready to press that button and start the adventure again.
Right.
I had a character, but I'm just going to scrap him and start from scratch because it's been that long ago. I bought it physically originally. So I've actually got the physical version of the game. But it's been that long ago, I've completely forgotten what to do, how to do it, where I am, what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start a scratch and go from there.
Sweet. Yeah, man.
What about you?
Sounds like a good gaming schedule you got there, man. So, yeah, I'll talk about what I've been playing in a second. Let me see what our community has been playing. H. Julia plays Spider-Man 2. Great game. Hope you're enjoying it. Thanos just beat Thirsty Suitors, and he says we shouldn't sleep on it, and I have not even heard of that game. Sounds like I need to look it up. Dave Ramos has been playing Resident Evil 2 Remastered on the Ally. Great remake or remaster. What else do we have? Steve plays Jusant as well. Then we have Pyromad playing Yakuza 6. I'm not a fan of the Yakuza series, but I know a lot of people like them. So yeah, good stuff here. Tony, Jusant and Cocoon as well. Nice. Good stuff. So I've been playing mostly Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, and I actually have a bit of gameplay. So we were going to watch Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty without any major spoilers here. It was like I don't know what happened this week with my Xbox, honestly, because I had like every game I played, I had the problem that when I wanted to record gameplay, and I usually record the gameplay via the Xbox internal recording, because I'm cheap and don't have an external, capture card. So after almost every 30 minutes or so, the Xbox stopped the recording. So I have like a ton of 30-minute clips now. So I'll have to switch the gameplay
You need to pick up a capture card. Is what you need to do. Come on.
I don't. No, the capture cards suck, man. You have to turn off the HDR. You have to have a lot of wiring.
The Elgato's got 4K 60 HDR pass through.
Yeah, but that just introduces latency, man. It's just a mess. Yeah, no, I'm good with the internal. I'm good with the internal
never noticed latency. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know about your reaction time, but maybe you just don't notice because you like to play games at 30 FPS too.
What are you trying to
say? Sin in the chat has been playing Fable 3 again last night. Dude, that is awesome. Because I was honestly, I have downloaded it on my Ally, Fable 2 actually. Was thinking about doing another playthrough there. Fable, man. No, I don't have it on the Ally. I have it on the Xbox downloaded. Sorry. I wanted to download, but it's not available on the Ally. And that's why I downloaded it. Anyways. And then I've been briefly playing a little bit more of Sea of Stars, of course, which is also fantastic. But yeah, Cyberpunk has me hooked mostly. Need to go back and finish Alan Wake 2 as well. I think I'm halfway through or so there. But yeah, Cyberpunk it's phenomenal, isn't it? It is phenomenal. Like, fantastic story, and just look at it. It is drop dead gorgeous. Like, and I'm playing on performance mode.
Sequence, like that opening boss sequence was just insane.
That was nuts. Yeah, that was really nuts. It was
constant as well. It wasn't just one area. It was like, all right, it's done, and then it's like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Definitely not.
But I'm thinking I'm now very at the end of the story of the add-on, because it feels like I'm close to this the final mission thing, you know. It just feel maybe they surprise me and it goes on forever, but it definitely feels like it. So yeah, that's what I've been playing mostly. But yeah, Big Mad Mo plans on platinum Tactica tonight. Sweet. Good stuff there. Good stuff. All right, Dutch, let's move on. And we definitely need to talk about the Game Awards. Yet again, I feel like we do this every year because it's every year the same shit show. What happens there? I don't know. So yeah, for those who have missed it, the nominations got out for the Game Awards, and the Game of the Year nominations are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Mario Bros. Wonder, and Zelda Tears of Kingdom. Those are the 6 nominees, and of course you can imagine that this stirs up a lot of discussion. And my tweet about it got like the craziest replies, where you just, I don't know what some people have in their heads, but yeah. So there's so much to talk here, and it's really hard to start at some point. Obviously, if you have a gaming show and want to nominate the best games of the year, it'll always differ. It's at the very end of the day, your list is very different than mine. And everyone here in the chat, in our community, if you put together the best 6 games of the year, it will look different for everyone. I think that the big problem with this is that it just does not make sense, and that the bias just comes through each and every year. I remember 2 years ago when we discussed Forza Horizon not being able to be nominated for Game of the Year. Things like that. We have these discourses like every year because every year it just shows how biased this whole Game Awards ceremony really is. if you look at it, you can argue about, okay, I don't know, I would have put Diablo 4, of course, in there. But obviously, I can see why this is nominated. And of course, I can also, I would have put in Starfield in that list because I just felt that this game was something really, really special. But it's not in there. And the problem with it really is in a year like this, where you have so many great games, you can argue all day long. It always comes down to taste. But yeah, Jeff Keighley always comes out and says, "Well, I'm not nominating anything here. It's this independent jury of 120 outlets." And if you look at this list, the majority of the votes in this jury go to the big mainstream biased media sites like IGN, Kotaku, and GameSpot, and so on. And of course, those are biased because those sites, and IGN, Kotaku, we all know that they run their sites for clicks. That's what they make their money off. And positive PlayStation news and bad Xbox news, it just generate clicks rather than just reporting on good stuff about Xbox. There have been written more articles about what Starfield did wrong and what it might lack of and so on. Then and there were 0 articles about Spider-Man having a lot of bugs and glitches in it. Yeah, it's just so obvious if you look at this. Even if you wouldn't nominate Starfield for Game of the Year, that's totally fine. But it's also not nominated in any other category outside of Best RPG. How? Please, come on. No music recognition in there. And if you look then at the nominees, like what has been nominated for Best Audio and Music, it's like ridiculous. You look at this games like Spider-Man are in there, and don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Spider-Man, but the game had basically 2 songs, and then you look at the game like Starfield, what's happening here? Yeah, and Xbox doesn't even get the recognition for most anticipated games next year because Hellblade isn't in there. Yeah, if you look at the most anticipated games, you have games like Yakuza Like a Dragon and Tekken 8 in there and Hades. Actually, Hades, I can understand why it's in there, but Hades 2. And Star Wars Outlaws and Final Fantasy 7, but no Xbox games. It's just so obvious how this Xbox gets snubbed each and every year. And yes, there were years like last year where there's really no arguing about it. Xbox didn't have any games last year. Yeah, but whenever they have the good ones, and this is just a historical thing. Yeah, games like Ori got completely snubbed out of this. Yeah, and not even games like Gears 3, 4, 5 were in there. It's like really, really, really weird. And we've seen Xbox now, or at least the studios, really being feisty about this. Today, the Sea of Stars developers came out and directly, the official Sea of Stars account replied directly under the Game Awards tweet.
Sea of Thieves.
What did I say?
Sea of Stars.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course, Sea of Thieves. The official Sea of Thieves account came out and replied directly under the Game Award announcement about community nominations. Hey, you don't like our community weekends that we do? Directly addressed Jeff in that tweet. We've seen other studios come out. Obsidian's Josh Sawyer, came out and talked about how problematic the deadline or cutoff date is, which is also something really ridiculous if you look at this. They announced the nominees on Monday, but the submission deadline was actually today. And like literally, how can you take these awards serious? And guys in the Xbox studios actually now come out and speak publicly about the Sea of Thieves and Obsidian, and you see those kind of things because it is just a ridiculous thing. And then you look at other categories that are not even concerning Xbox, but there's this best esport coach category. And one of the coaches, Danny, actually came out publicly and said, "Hey, I didn't even coach this year. Please take me off this list. I don't deserve to be in there. I didn't do the things you are nominating me for." So it just shows you how much of a farce this really is. If you look at these Game Awards, submission deadlines really don't matter. They just announce them up front. And we've seen the goalposts moved, where you remember that year, was it 2018-19 when Smash Brothers came out, and Smash Brothers release date would have missed the deadline like 2 days, and then all of a sudden this was possible to be nominated, even if the game comes out afterwards. Those goalposts really move around. And now if you look at this altogether, holistically, Xbox had a phenomenal year, at least the second half of the year. We don't talk about the first half. We will cover that probably a little later. But with Starfield and Forza, how can Forza not be in best audio, man? Whether you enjoy racing games or not, really doesn't matter. But if you listen to this audio design, the ray traced 3D audio in that game is just like top notch and easily one of the best things in many years in terms of audio design. So if you look at all of this, it just is so obvious that you can't take the awards serious. It's not about trying to find objectively the best game, the best racing game, the best RPG, the best visuals, the best audio, and so on. It's really just about making headlines, nominating what big media sites want to public, because obviously an IGN and GameSpot are going to not to vote for Xbox, because what was the first article that IGN posted? Starfield missed the Game Awards. Wasn't the exact title, but something in these along these lines. You know what I mean? So obviously that creates them clicks. If Starfield would have just been in there, it wouldn't have an article to write. And this is really the problem, because the community, the gaming industry, sees the Game Awards as the biggest or most influential awards in the industry. That whether you like Jeff Keighley or not, it really doesn't matter. It is the most important award in the gaming industry. And when you run something like that, you should at least try to get objectively the best list together. It will never be something objectively, obviously, but you have to have the intention to achieve that as good as possible. And I wouldn't be able to do that, because if my list is a subjective thing. Of course, yours is, and everyone's in the community is. But this is what such an award should try to achieve. But it's really, really not about that. And there's so many things like the deadline thing, like people getting nominated in categories that they don't even work in. Then you have games like Destiny 2 in best community support. Come on, how can you actually take those awards serious? It's ridiculous to put in such a game. And yeah, man, I've been going on for way too long. Let me hear your thoughts, man. This is just so annoying, because I think in this industry, you can criticize Xbox a lot. You can, but you also gotta give the guys credit when credit is due. And this year they definitely deserve it. Sony put out one first-party game, and whether it's in your top 6 list or not, yeah, okay. But this game is nominated in almost every category. Yeah, that matters. And what about Xbox? They put out some of the best games this year with Forza and in the racing genre, definitely the best racer this year, easily. And Starfield, one of the 2 best RPGs this year. You can argue in between Baldur's Gate and Starfield, obviously, but it is in there, and they don't get the recognition, not even close, and that's really not fair. And if you can criticize any publishers, we do that here as well. We criticize Xbox, we criticize PlayStation and Nintendo and Steam and everything, but we also give them praise and recognition when deserved. And this just falls short here. And so, in my eyes, they've lost yet again all credibility to be like a serious award ceremony. And I know we say that every year. We just watch it for the trailers anyway. I'm not even going to watch it. I'm not going to stay up late and give me this 6-hour advertisement show of Jeff Keighley. I can just watch the 5-10 awesome trailers that were shown the next morning. So, yeah, man. What about you, bro? How do you see all of this? Now I'll really let you talk. Sorry.
That's all right. Like, taking even just the Xbox stuff out of it, the entire show is just all of the nominations and the categories are they're just a mess. They're an uneducated mess. Like, I'm sorry, but if you've got a panel of 120 experts, they should know that a coach for an esports team hasn't been coaching that year. If they actually knew what esports were and watched esports, they would know that particular coach hadn't coached any team that year.
You know what? I would place a bet. I would really place a bet that probably at least half of the guys in the committee didn't even know any names of esports coaches, and then they just Googled esports coaches and voted for the first 5 names that came up. I would place a bet that it's like that.
Yeah. Then you've got the indie category. And you've got a game in there, Dave the Diver, where the developer themselves said, we're not an indie game. Like, it might look like an indie title, but it isn't by any stretch of the imagination. We're not an independent developer. We're not an indie.
Yeah.
And that isn't an indie game.
Lies of
voted
in the RPG
nominated. Yeah, Lies of P going into an RPG just because it has skill points. That's not what classifies an RPG. Like, it's complete uneducated guesswork across the board. And again, I'm sorry, but Spidey being an audio, definitely not. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be in most of the categories it's in. And you could argue based on personal choice, but you could argue it wouldn't really, in the normal circumstances, be nominated for Game of the Year. It's a good game. Granted, a lot of people enjoyed it. And same and again, I've got another whole rant on thinking personally, especially in a year like this year, where you've got a whole bunch of new IPs and a whole bunch of new games that were absolutely amazing, and then you slap a remake in there that's already had its time.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that a little later. Yeah. It's what are we doing here, man? That game is what, 17, 18 years old, and
It's had its flowers in like old award ceremony. It's had its time. Like, give new games the limelight. Give the new games their flowers.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good game. It's a great remake, but it's been out before. We know what the game is. We've played the game before.
Yeah.
Just because it's had a fresh lick of paint doesn't mean it needs a whole new load of plaudits. They haven't redesigned the wheel. They haven't changed the story. They haven't changed the characters. Nothing new's happened in the game. They've just given it a fresh lick of paint. And now that it's getting nominated for, come on. Like, even like, do you think Dead Space did more for me for what Dead Space was than Resident Evil 4 did? Resident Evil 4 was great, but Dead Space did a lot more. And it's specifically in terms of audio as well.
But not even Dead Space deserves it, honestly, because again, I don't
create a whole new category.
Yes,
a whole new category
best
for
remakes, remasters, and so on. Yeah. Then you can throw in Metroid Prime was also fantastic this year. Yeah, and others.
Because they keep creating random categories for every other excuse not to put Xbox games in there. Okay, so what we're gonna so we'll create best ongoing because Xbox have got a lot of games as a service games, so we'll do that. How about best sports and simulator? Yeah, we'll do that because Xbox seem to have a lot of sports and racing games, so we'll put that one there. What about best Western RPG? Right, we'll create a category for that. Like, we'll shove Xbox into that stuff.
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot of Western RPGs. But Game of the Year titles, we're going to fill that to the brim with remakes, Nintendo games and PlayStation games. Because, Xbox.
It gives the Kotakus...
Like, the moment Xbox started talking about that, how's Diablo in its story and the game that pre-season 1, we're talking about the game that they originally reviewed.
Yeah.
That everybody absolutely loved. They loved Lilith. They loved the game design. They loved the combat. They loved the story. They loved the sound. Everything reviewers loved about that game, and it does not get nominated. Yeah. How doesn't it get even a chance of getting nominated for Game of the Year?
Yeah, I don't.
Even if you just think about Starfield again, which is both of these games are subjective, by the way, but I'd still have Diablo 4 and Starfield above Resident Evil 4. And that's not even starting on the fact that Hogwarts got left out of everything.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. How Hogwarts was the most successful game of the year. Just the other day, Matt Pescatella from the NPD posted the sales charts of this year, and it is still the best-selling game of this year. And it was loved by everyone. It had its controversy, like everything that surrounds Harry Potter these days, man. Which... Yeah, you can agree or disagree with J.K. Rowling. She wasn't even involved in the development of the game just because it uses the Harry Potter IP. The game really stood on its own. It deserved the praise it got. It was definitely one of the best games of the year. And again, it comes down to personal preference, and you might not put it in your Game of the Year nominations, but it isn't even nominated in any other category. How can the most successful and one of the best rated games of the year not be nominated in one of these in one of these categories?
Specifically RPG?
It is
specifically Lies of P.
You put in Lies of P, which is an action adventure, and you put it in the RPG category and not Hogwarts Legacy. And listen, again, it's all about the headlines. The only thing that those guys were afraid is, create maybe negative headlines about themselves because whenever I posted something on Twitter about loving Hogwarts Legacy, I had 10 trolls down there saying that I'm homophobic and so on, which is 100% not true. I just enjoy the game. But they were specifically afraid about getting any kind of shitstorm or negative replies or whatnot, and that's really not what generates clicks on IGN and Kotaku and GameSpot and so on. And that's what this is all about. And it is a shame, and you cannot take these awards seriously if you leave out the most successful game of the year entirely. It's
and let's face it, guys. This is a show about games and celebrating games. This isn't a show about personal politics or somebody's beliefs. Like, this is about celebrating the developers, the artwork, the music, and the time and the craft of what these games are. It's got nothing to do with the origin of where that particular world come from or the beliefs of the people that created it. That is entirely segmented. You cannot do that. If that is the case, then Jeff Keighley cannot be standing on stage and talking about anything to do with Ukraine or Palestine or Israel or Russia or anything like that. He can't be standing up for other people's personal opinions on stage. He can't be shouting out for anything, because the moment he takes any side in any political debate or any opinion to do with that, then the Hogwarts thing is absolutely out the window. And Jeff has done that on stage before. He's taken political stances against certain political things on stage to say, we stand in support of X, Y, or Z. And he's done that before. So the moment he says, oh, well, Hogwarts wasn't included because of J.K. Rowling's things, I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash, because you can't take a stance on a political belief for something else and then not take a stance on this.
Yeah.
Like, this is about the artwork, it's about the craft, and you have to celebrate the craft and ignore what that origin was. That's got nothing to do with that. These poor developers, I feel sorry for everyone that worked on that game.
Yeah.
This is a studio that was pretty much unknown to everybody previously.
Absolutely.
They made a Disney game. And now they've got one of the biggest and most successful launches for a single-player IP in recent times, and it's been completely and utterly ignored, despite being one of the best games this year.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane.
It definitely is. Let me briefly catch up on a super chat. Dave Ramos sends in $10. Thank you so much, man. And he says, have you heard about Spawnwave's Game of the Year bracket idea? 32 games compete head-to-head a la March Madness. We'll get transparent commentary, and each game can compete on the merit of the game itself. I have not heard about Spawnwave's idea, but it sounds like definitely a better process than we have right now. I've seen a lot of ideas out there. David Chaffee posted something about that you would or should only be allowed to vote on the game of the years if you have at least finished 50% of each of those games. So making sure you have actually played and can judge the game. I would even go actually further. If you really want to be taken serious for Game of the Year, you should at least have finished the games that you talk about. But
not only finished the game, but finished, at least divulged into every mode and portion of that game, regardless what it is. Like, just playing through the story in a lot of these games isn't enough now, because you have no idea what the side quests are like. You don't know what the multiplayer can be like on some of these games. You don't know what the other character development could be like. If there's a new game plus, what does that do? Does it give anything? Like, you have to know.
Yeah, and how does a certain storyline turn out? A lot of the mechanics, if you look at Starfield, I feel this might be really a problem, because Starfield is such a game, the more you put into it, the more you get out. And especially if you progress along the story, certain things really change in the game. I don't want to spoil too much, but you get certain abilities and certain things happen that just change the way how you play the game. Yeah, and I'm not even talking about New Game Plus here. It's really along the storyline. But that's really the thing. If you look at this, is really the problem with most major media sites out there right now. There are no game journalists. Those are just people working there that are not gamers. You can really tell. We've had that debate so many times. There's so many examples you could pull out where you can just tell, okay, this guy or a gal at IGN didn't play the game. He or she doesn't know what they are doing, and so on. It's just what it is. H. Julia sends in a €2.50 super chat and says, I lost a friend because I played Hogwarts Legacy. I'm sorry.
That
wasn't a friend in the first place, but I feel you. The debates around that game, and
we're insane.
It is really nuts. It's really nuts. It's always sad to see if you suddenly have such a thing happen. You just like to play a video game, and then you see people turn the back on you. I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, and that's why they are such cowards over there at the Game Awards, because they they are literally just pulling them out of any kind of conversation. It's like, yeah, the Game Awards just can't really be taken serious, and yeah, again, I'm just going to watch it. Or I'm not even going to watch the entire show. I really don't see. Everyone says that. I don't care, and still we get mad about certain games not being nominated and others being in there.
The thing is,
I do care.
I'm not bothered about,
because I think a good award ceremony is important for any industry. Any industry, entertainment industry, has that. You have it in the music business, you have it in the book business, you have it in the movie business, obviously, because it gives the creators, the developers, a certain recognition. And I think the developers deserve to have that, because gaming is an art form, and it's a great art form. It's the best art form out there, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm super passionate about video games, and I just that's what annoys me. It's the Game Awards are not for me. I don't win an award or anything. I don't gain any personal benefit if Starfield wins or not, or is nominated or not, or any other game. Yeah, and there were a lot of games that got snubbed this year, obviously, and but it is a certain form of recognition for the developers, and I feel bad for them because they make the stuff that I love, and that's why I think a proper award ceremony is important to a certain degree. But I'm still not gonna watch the awards. I just want to see, of course, the trailers and things that get announced, and like every year they get quite a few announcements over there. Usually 1, 2, 3 really good announcements come out of the Game Awards, so I will be watching that the day after. It's anyway very late here in Germany when the awards air. So
yeah, and I'm not like, it doesn't bother, like, the outside of Hogwarts games being nominated, not nominated, like, that doesn't affect me. That doesn't truly bother me. What bothers me is the inaccuracy and the incorrect, the incorrect things that are, and it's not just one. There's so many things where you're thinking, why is that game in that category? Why is that there?
And not
why
there.
is that?
Again,
nothing. It's so inaccurate and like so poorly put together. And it's like, well, who out of these 120 expert critics sat there and thought Lies of P is an RPG? Who thought a non-independent game was an indie game, and then decided to just reinvent the category because any game that looks like an indie game is all of a sudden an indie game? That's not how indie works. Like, indie means independent. It doesn't mean that they don't have a publisher or don't work with a publisher, because independent studios do need, in some occasions, to agree publishing deals in order to get their games anyway. But what it means is that they're not wholly owned by a large studio or corporation. It means they are completely independent. Whether or not they get a publisher to publish their game is an entirely separate thing. They are not wholly owned by a large company. Dave the Diver Studio is wholly owned by Nexon, massive company, who fund that game.
Yeah.
They fund the development of that game. They are not an independent studio at all. It's an entirely separate thing to Ori, who, granted, were published by Xbox. However, we're not funded by Xbox. and are completely independent, which is why they are able to go elsewhere and do other things with other publishers and put their games on any other platform, which is why they have.
Yeah.
Because that was just a publishing deal. That doesn't make it not indie. It's a very easy to grasp thing, and anybody who thinks, okay, and this is what these critics are seeming to do, any game that looks indie is all of a sudden cast as an indie game, irrespective of the actual meaning of the word independent. And it's just like, just stick to the categories. Lies of P is not an RPG. RPGs are either Western or Japanese or otherwise, but the vast majority of RPGs are an in-depth storytelling, a role-playing game where it could or could not. It doesn't necessarily have to have a skill tree, but that's the only reason they've put Lies of P in there. Lies of P is a Souls game. It's an action venture. It's a Souls game. It's got nothing to do with being an RPG. It is in no way, shape, or form an RPG.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
Persona is an RPG. Final Fantasy is an RPG. Starfield is an RPG. Hogwarts is an RPG. Elder Scrolls is an RPG. Assassin's Creed is an RPG. The new ones, they didn't used to be. The new ones are RPGs because they've changed. You know, then you've the upcoming Avatar is an RPG. Like, these are big, and it doesn't mean they have to be open world. But Sea of Stars is an RPG. It's a traditional turn-based version. Octopath Traveler is an RPG. You get the gist. These are RPGs.
Yeah.
Yakuza is an RPG. It's an action game, but that's very much an RPG. You are playing the role of a certain. Well, you're playing the role of a Yakuza member, but it's got an in-depth storytelling. It's got upgradable everything. It's got this. It's got that. Like Yakuza as a franchise, Judgment as a franchise, they're big open world, tons of side quests and things like that. Like, these are RPGs that have been going since the dawn of time. Pokemon's an RPG. It can go on forever. Like, it's really easy to differentiate what is and what isn't in certain categories. And I just don't understand why this isn't just basic stuff these apparent experts can't get right. They just can't get right. And like I said, the funniest thing was when the esports coach had to call them out and just say, listen, take us out. I wasn't even coaching.
Yeah.
Like, you should know that is so much. This is like basic information. They should know. If you go to watch any esports event for whatever team he's doing, if they had watched any of them, they would have seen him standing beside his team when they are competing.
Yep.
Being a coach is always standing right next to his team, or where they're in between rounds. He's going over to his players and he's giving them advice. They would have known that had they actually taken an interest in esports. But it's clear that none of these 120 critics have watched any esports over the last 12 months. Otherwise, they would have known he was not there.
Yeah.
Which means, how can you have these 120 critics who can't get that most basic information right? How can the legitimacy of anything they've voted for be accounted for?
Yep.
How can it be there? That is.
It isn't. It isn't there. It isn't there. And again, Hellblade 2, man. How can they not put it in there?
Most anticipated, or Avowed, or like anything.
Or Stalker, or I don't know.
I was half expecting to see Wolverine in there.
Yeah. I wouldn't be, honestly, wouldn't it have surprised me? It wouldn't have surprised me. Yeah. So I think we agree that the awards can't be taken serious.
I mean, my thing, and I think we said this yesterday, but I want to kind of cap it off again here for your community as well. But my thing ultimately here is it's the organization of the awards section of the ceremony. The only reason the vast majority still watch this award ceremony is for the reveals. If you take that out, the awards themselves are an absolute mess. They've got things in the wrong place, the wrong categories, games are there, people there that shouldn't be and should be, so on and so forth. Like, the entire thing needs a complete rework and a redesign in terms of the actual reward section of the ceremony. And then the way that these critics are involved, like you mentioned with IGN, I'm sorry, but when you've got a company as large as IGN, you cannot have like they do in every review website. IGN France, Spain, Italy, Germany, UK, America, Brazil, Portugal. You can't have 55 IGNs doing critical. No, it's you. IGN pick one person from IGN as a company to be the critic.
Agreed.
One expert for the entirety of IGN every year, not one from every section of IGN worldwide. Nope. Minimize that. You don't need 120 critics to choose these awards. You don't.
Yeah.
You need the big person, the big I am from each of these companies independently. Not somebody who's been involved in every section, but that person has to have played at least 50% of every game that is in the categories they're voting on, at least minimum. And that should be a requirement before this even starts. And they have to prove it. They would have to prove it to Jet. Right, okay, there you go. There's the proof that I have completed at least 50% of all of the games in these categories. That it needs to be.
Couldn't agree more.
On that note as well, Jeff needs to stop shirking responsibility for an award show that he created, he designed, and he runs. He can't, every time an issue or a problem comes up, it's not me, it's the independent it's not me, it's the independent panel.
Yeah.
It's not, stop it. Stop it. It is your show, you created it, you got these panel members in.
You want to take the credit for the good things out of it. Yeah, so you also have to take the criticism, and but he's way too much a narcissist to do that. And I think the Hogwarts thing just shows exactly the key problem. Yeah, just avoid any criticism at all, and yeah. So I want to know from everyone in the chat what do you think is the biggest snub this year? Let us know. Let us know, Dutch. What do you feel? Looking at this Game of the Year category. So I already mentioned, of course, Starfield belongs in there, in my opinion. I would also definitely put Diablo and Hogwarts in there. I feel like those are the three biggest snubs this year. You could also, my personal list would definitely look different. As much as I enjoyed Tears of the Kingdom, I don't think it was in my top 6 that I've played. Baldur's Gate definitely belongs in there, no doubt. But yeah, I don't think Super Mario Wonders belongs in there. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but it is the same 2D side-scrolling Mario that we've been getting for years. Dave Ramos in the chat says Diablo 4 is his game of the year. I agree.
Hogwarts is my biggest snub. By far, Hogwarts is my biggest snub. But I also think, if we're talking about games, successful games that have came out this year that have not had any bugs, have not had any issues, have ran flawlessly from day one, have been beautiful in the artwork, beautiful in the combat, fun to play, universally adored by everyone who played it, amazing soundtrack, great character and story. How many of the games in that Game of the Year list had that and had no bugs, no issues, no problems on launch?
Yeah, I agree.
One game did come out this year that had all of that and more, and was only put into an action RPG section. Didn't make the music section, despite having an amazing music soundtrack. That was Hi-Fi Rush. Personally, for me, I would even potentially include Hi-Fi Rush in the Game of the Year category there.
Yeah, I could see that. Again, it's all about taste at the end of the day.
Yeah. Even in the accessibility, music, artwork, art and design.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush should have had so many nominations. It should have done. I don't care whether it's an A game or a B game, whatever you class it as in terms of its size. What that game did, and considering we didn't even know it existed until it dropped, and then it came out in such high quality, had a great fun factor, story, artwork, that you name it. Like, name another game this year that's dropped to that quality standard and had no issues on launch, and is ultimately just segregated to you're an action thing. Go on. Yeah. Come on.
I mean, Dustin in the chat says Zelda had all of that, and he's not wrong. That game was pretty much bug-free. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it much more than Breath of the Wild, but I still felt the game fell off halfway through because for me it was a lot of repetitive stuff. Then, the physics and building things were fun at the very beginning, but it was towards the middle and end always basically the same things you had to do, and the breaking weapons just annoyed the hell out of me. It's a little bit better than in Breath of the Wild, but it is still other than that, great. Obviously Zelda was a fantastic game, no doubt. And I can see that it's in there. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve to be in there.
Zelda should absolutely be deserving of its place in there. That's no problem. Yeah, Mario definitely not.
James in the chat says 4. That was the golf game, if I remember correctly. And Sappho says the biggest snub are the gamers. These people are supposed to be representing us, representing the game industry, and it's just completely wrong. And I couldn't agree more.
Dazaris absolutely loves Final Fantasy 16, by the way. That's the game that got him into the franchise entirely, by the way. He's actually bought every Final Fantasy game since.
Every one of them. I knew that he loved 16, but I thought he is a fan of the series already, so that's impressive. I hear nothing but good things about Final Fantasy 16, so I have yet to play it, though, so I really can't talk on it, but I hear nothing but good things. Heavy Cloud, same.
I think the Final Fantasy 16 actor got the guy who plays Clive got snubbed for one of the best actors the roles as well, and people were really murked for that.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Like he was really like as much as people hate some of the too many cutscenes and things in Final Fantasy 16, which there is a lot of cutscenes. In terms of what you're doing as an actor, obviously in those cutscenes and everywhere else, like the way he portrayed that character was like really, really good apparently, and everyone's loved it. So it's another surprise, like why he got snubbed.
Octopath Traveler 2 also didn't get any recognition. Sea of Stars also got snubbed in a lot of categories. In my opinion, I would have even put in Jedi Survivor because I really enjoyed that game. I mean, the good news is this was just a phenomenal year for video games.
It was, yeah.
It is. You can debate whether this or 2007 was the best year in video game history ever, but it's either one of these two, and that just tells you how good of a year this actually was. And I mean, that's the good
still
news,
gonna be
right?
catching up. I'm going to be catching up on this year into next year. Like there is no doubt. And then next year it comes along and it's absolutely packed again. It's for the next couple of years. We're going to be chasing our tails. There's no chance we're going to be able to catch up with everything.
What would you put in the most anticipated?
Obviously Hellblade. 100% Hellblade. Stalker's one of them as well.
Yeah. Rebirth.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, I'm looking at Rebirth on the PlayStation Store. They've got a really weird deal on at the minute. And it's a permanent deal, by the way. That makes no sense.
Okay.
So you get Rebirth by itself for $69.99, or you can get Rebirth with Remake Integrate for $69.99.
Okay.
Or you can get the deluxe edition of Rebirth for $84.99, or you can get the deluxe edition twin pack with Remake Integrate for $84.99. There is no price difference, and you can get both games.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would absolutely include that. I'm like, I cannot wait for that. That is when to me, Final Fantasy Remake is that's when we see what they've done with that franchise as a segmented section, because that's when you start to get the open world, the overworld. That's when you start to see kind of some parts of the outside and not just Midgard.
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking forward to now. And
me too.
And seeing
I cannot wait. I love the remake, and honestly, I have this gut feeling with this new partnership of Square and Xbox that we might still get lucky and see it, because we all thought it will come after this 1 year exclusivity, and then they made up this new deal, and then the relationship of Square and Xbox fell apart, and then Phil came out on the stage earlier this year and said, yeah, we have a newly friendship and a new partnership and blah blah. And we've heard that before, because they did the exact same thing to 2019, or was it 18?
Yeah.
18 or 19. And I was like, yeah, come on. But ever since, I've already seen Square games come to Xbox. We've got the announcement of Octopath Traveler 2 coming to Game Pass in January or February. And Phil was at Gamescom, he was asked, what about this Final Fantasy VII remake and Rebirth? And he was like, yeah, I really can't talk about that, but we're working on it. And it kind of sounded to me that this time it might actually come. And we know that Rebirth only has a 2-month exclusivity deal. So I would expect that game to drop at least on PC 2 months after launch. And honestly, I have this gut feeling, no sources or so no one needs to quote me, but it's just my gut feeling that this time Rebirth is going to come out, and it's going to come out in a bundle, with the remake.
That's what I'm saying. This one right here, the remake Integrate Deluxe Twin Pack.
Yeah.
For both games in one for 84 quid.
Yeah.
Granted, remake Integrate's been out on PlayStation for a while. I don't see the pricing being the same on Xbox. I think the bundle pack will be like 120 or something ridiculous. Yeah. But it's I can see them definitely just bundling it in 100%.
Yeah.
They'll just do a twin pack.
And again, then we also got next year Avowed, man. And I'm super excited for Avowed, because I love Obsidian.
I'm excited for Towerborn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We played it at Gamescom together with you. We too played it, and it was a lot of fun. I can see myself that being like my casual go-to game, if you have 30 minutes to kill or so. You don't want to dive into any of the story games, because usually you can't play story games just for 15 to 30 minutes, but you can definitely do that with Towerborn. And it is definitely something. And you already mentioned Stalker 2 next year. Yeah. Actually, Suicide Squad, we will talk about that a little later. But there are a lot of games coming next year.
I mean, there's a lot. The problem is, I think, is when we're talking about most anticipated for next year, is that there is already so many games coming out next year and potentially coming out next year that I've already forgotten what games are coming out next year that I'm excited for, because there is that many. Like, there's only the few that peak out, because I've been waiting so long for Hellblade. I've been waiting a long time for Rebirth, and thankfully we're getting that in February. I've been waiting so long for Stalker 2. So these things are like fresh in the mind. But then there's other ones that have been like pushed back, and things that we've been waiting for that didn't come out this year and got pushed into next year. And then there's other ones where we know Xbox might be releasing yet another AAA game that we haven't officially been announced yet. It could be the likes of Indiana Jones. It could be something like that. In which case, if one of those games ends up being the third game or fourth AAA game that comes out for Xbox next year, that would automatically, if I knew that like the indie game would automatically go as one of my most anticipated.
Yeah.
So it's countless games. Like, there's so many things coming out next year that I'm like,
indeed,
cannot wait.
Indeed. And we already know about so many Game Pass games as well. So this is it's gonna be another fantastic year for video games. And I do have a feeling, honestly, that we will see Contraband next year. And I do have the feeling that the leaks we got earlier this year, the big Xbox leak, suggested that Indiana Jones actually could be ready because it was planned. I can't remember what it said in the leak
for last year.
Yeah, last year I think so. 2022 was planned, and basically everything else on this list, like Starfield, was planned in 2020 or 2021 in the leak, and then you add the additional 2 years, it would actually may put Indiana Jones next year in the next year. So yeah, it's gonna be.
I mean, the reason I'm kind of more excited for that is because it's machine games, and games in terms of quality wise haven't let me down.
Yeah,
like the quality and the performance machine games have put out in their releases has been top tier.
Yeah.
So. And then we could yet see potentially Fable.
I don't think so.
You could potentially see Clockwork.
Yeah.
You could potentially see South of Midnight.
I'm not sure about South of Midnight, but I could see Clockwork or I always say Clockwork Orange, brother.
The only reason I say that is these are the only, like, if I've been through, because I made it after I added these into mine.
Yeah,
I made a thing of going through all of the place marker things for all of the Xbox games that are in there.
Yeah,
all of them. And the only ones that have got place markers on there that are out on these distant lists, are Avowed, South of Midnight, Towerborn. Oh, and Clockwork. Sorry, I've got Clockwork on as well. These have all got place marker things in the Xbox store where you can.
Dude, let us talk about Clockwork for a minute, because we actually got some interesting news this week. Brian Fargo had an interview, and he shared a couple of infos, and especially his favorite scene of the game. So he talked a lot about in this interview, which was posted on WCCF Tech, that they wanted to create a game that features true reactivity of the game world, and that is not just by interacting with the game world in terms of physics and things, but really in the way that you can turn back time, change things, and see the outcome in your storyline. And I'm just gonna read something from the interview where he talks about his favorite scene of the game and what makes this game so special to him. He said, then I just got really more excited about Clockwork Revolution. We started talking about time travel, and then that really was like, okay, I mean, it hurts my brain from reactivity perspective, but the idea that I could go back in time and change some stuff and see the ramification, it's kind of the ultimate reactivity. We're just leaning into it so hard to make sure it can't be a parlor trick. It has to be like true reactivity that you are doing. I'll pimp one scene, which I'm not supposed to talk about, but whatever. As an example, my favorite scene so far in Clockwork Revolution is there's this serial killer. He's in a cage like Hannibal Lecter. He's nuts, and all his victims are up on the wall. You go back in time and you meet him, but at this point, he's not killed anybody. He hasn't done anything yet, so you can kill him, but it feels a little awkward. You feel like a shit because he doesn't know what's going on. I mean, you know what he's going to become, but you don't know why. But all you know he hasn't done anything at this time. He's begging for his life. You can let him go, you can kill him, or you can kind of like shoot him and then halfway through go. Okay, never mind, forget it. When you come back to the present, he's not a serial killer. He's an advocate for victims' rights, for people who break into homes and shoot people. I love that dark humor. that kind of stuff, whether we are paying it off in a big way, like, okay, now it's run by the crime syndicate, or now it's the church who is in charge. Or even something like that on a smaller scale. Maybe you went back to the past with a red hat and they are like, oh my God, we love your hat. You come back and you started a fad. Everybody loves red hats now. It's that stuff I think is highly entertaining. So Dutch, hearing all of that really made me excited for the game, because I love that kind of stuff where your choices in a game have real impact on what's going to happen in a game. I just love that. And to me, seeing Clockwork this year revealed in a trailer where you had actual gameplay scenes, yeah, South of Midnight didn't have that. They had this, reveal trailer where they revealed the art style and the tone of the game, but nothing more. We still don't know anything, but we've seen gameplay elements where they turn back the time, where you get an idea of the game world and what they are going for. And now hearing Brian Fargo talk about this game like that actually also made me feel like, okay, it might be closer than we might think. What do you think? You excited for this when you hear that?
Yeah, that was my, like, out of all of the trailer, even over Fable, as much as I loved the Fable trailer, out of all of the trailers that I watched on that reveal event, Clockwork's trailer was phenomenal. The music was so well done, the gameplay, like everything that was shown for that already put it like high on my most anticipated list for games that I'm looking forward to. Like, it looks absolutely like brilliant. But then hearing that, like, literally everything has an effect, and it's not just a gimmick, and like the going back and forth between time actually has knock-on effects. It's like, of course, we're still going to have that dubious thing in our brains where it's like, but does it though? Does it though? And until we get our hands on to experience it, we're going to have those doubts. But if he's that hyped for the game and he's like, literally like everything, like you can go back in time and do this, and then you go back to the present and everything's changed because of that decision or because of what you've done there. Like, that is, again, it's called innovation, and that's what we like to see in video game. It's innovating things. Yes. And granted, games done kind of things like that before, but not to an extent that he said, where you could change your hair color and all of a sudden everybody loves the hair color in the future. And like, that is like next level, like of evolving world. So I'm super excited for it, and hearing that again, like I say, we've still got that. So you always have that little thing in my head where it goes, but really, but does it? But yeah, I'm super looking forward to it, and any more information or any more gameplay for this, I'm all in. Give me it.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's the first time in Exile they said themselves, are doing a true AAA game. They haven't done that before. All their games were kind of like in the AA space, but what they have always done is innovative game mechanics. If you think about Wasteland, what they did to the turn-based genre there, it's really amazing when you think about what they did with the small budget that they had. Now they go Unreal 5, they go big AAA scope, and obviously they have something special in their mind. Also, the setting is, the steampunk setting isn't like used too much in games, so I'm not tired of it. Like with a couple of other settings that you get 3 times a year, And really hearing that you can go back in time and actually change the outcome. If I think about some of the best games that I've played ever, most of them are games where your choices really mattered. And this has me really, really excited. Cannot wait there. Really cannot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got also a couple of other updates on games. Suicide Squad, namingly. They've launched a 20-minute development diary talking about the actual world and the gameplay mechanics they introduced. I don't know if you've watched it. They've shown the first mission of the game where all the characters find some tools for their traversal, like grappling hook and jetpack and stuff like that. And I know the game hasn't been received that well when they first shown it. Seeing it now in the development diary, I'm honestly excited for it. It is a very, very different game. They also talked about that when they did the Batman series, the Arkham series, which is one of the best gaming series out there, in my opinion. They went for this dark and gritty style because it was the right thing to do for Batman. But this dark and gritty world does not fit the Suicide Squad. They have a lot of humor in there. They've shown that. They also kind of, at least to me, it sounded like they emphasized that they heavily invested in the cutscenes, that they have multiple cutscenes for certain scenarios, and not everyone is seeing the same thing, so implying that you get to make certain decisions and things like that. I'm still not a fan that they go the games as a service route. Yeah, but to me it sounded like at least you get a proper campaign and the games as a service stuff comes in the end game. And I'm actually fine with that. If I get to play a great campaign for 20-25 hours or whatever it will be, yeah, and then just do not care about the end game, who cares? I got a great game out of it, and the traversal looks fun. Does it fit to why you could ask why the shark has a gun or so, but at the end it's a video game, but what do you think? Have you seen it, and what are your thoughts on Suicide Squad?
Yeah, it's one of I think it's a game next year that could end up being one of them games that people just, I don't think, ignore. But when you think of all of the other games that are coming out next year, it's a bit like this year. There were certain games that didn't get looked into properly or played as much as many others because there was just so many other better games to be playing.
That is true.
And I think Suicide Squad could end up being one of those games where it's just kind of forgotten.
I mean,
because people are just like, I'll get round to it. Listen, it's not a game that I'm super excited for, but it's a game I'll play, and then I'll pick it up in a sale, and then I'll forget about it.
I mean, they've chosen a good release date. They come out super early in the game. February 2nd is, I think, a very good spot for them because the heavy hitters won't come before March, April.
So Rebirth in February.
Yeah,
Rebirth. February.
Yeah, end of February, very end of February. I think 3-4 weeks in between the two is okay. I think that's kind of smart to position it there because I would agree with you if they came out in April and then we are talking about the Stalkers and the Hellblade. I would assume is around April, May, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe June, but yeah.
I think that the thing is when you're positioned right at the beginning of the year, there's a whole nother thing you've got to worry about is there's a lot of people start picking up games that they didn't get earlier on in the previous year in the sales in January that they want to catch up on. So then they end up playing good games that they missed on the previous year instead of the one that comes just out because they're like, well, I can get this game, and this game, or I can get Suicide Squad. Like, what would I rather? I would rather play For instance, though, I would rather play Dead
Yeah,
Space because I haven't played that.
I
I would
mean,
rather play Avatar because that's on sale. I'd
if
rather
you
play
look at
this because this is
yeah, but if you look at it this way, there's never going to be a good point in time when you can release any game. Yeah, because you could
and I
also
think
argue now bringing out a game now. Yeah, okay, we have the Black Friday sales around the corner. I can just pick up the some games there. This is something that always happens. But I feel like, Avatar coming out early December 6th or so.
yeah,
And then we don't have a major release scheduled for
good,
January. So we have
good.
basically 2 months of nothing, and we have the long, Christmas period in between where people really will try to catch up on their
As
backlogs,
much as
and
possible. Yeah,
as much as and then people are hungry for new stuff, and I feel like it will definitely help them to be one of the first major games in the year.
yeah.
So yeah, what did you think of the gameplay that you've seen?
I mean, it looks all right. It still looks fun. But yeah, it just looks okay. It just looks all right. I mean, it looks fun enough, but it's not. It's still not a game that I'm wanting to spend 70 quid on.
Yeah, well, you don't like superheroes anyway, so who am I
But it's
asking
not
there?
that because I like funny superhero games. Like so, I like Guardians of the Galaxy because that was funny.
Yeah,
Like if they brought out like a new Deadpool, like in Ryan Reynolds was doing the acting, I'd play that. If and again, if Wolverine is as R-rated /18 plus game as it should be, I'll be playing that because that's what Wolverine should be, and it should be gritty and it should be like slashing, hacking, and chopping limbs off and things like that. Like that's what Wolverine should be because that in all the movies, including in Logan, it's a very bloody and it's a very brutal world.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, they already confirmed that it's going to be mature rated, so
yeah, but just how mature is another thing. Just adding a little bit of blood splatter on screen is not the same as chopping a limb off. Like Wolverine in
true.
that universe, and especially in Logan, he's chopping people up, he's lancing heads off, he's legs off. Then you've got his daughter, who's equally as brutal. You know, it's so it depends, but yeah, it depends on the game. Like the likes of like a Superman or a Spider-Man. It's for me, it's just like too superhero-y, cringy, too like do-gooder. I'm not really bothered about the whole do-goody thing. I'm not wanting to be the superhero. I'd rather be the anti-hero. I'd rather be the one that's like cracking jokes and like quite sick in the head and sort of stupid. And that's what the Suicide Squad should be. It's like cracking jokes and having fun. And the Guardians of the Galaxy are equally ridiculous. They're stupid as well and always cracking jokes with each other and fighting with each other. And
Yeah.
like that's the kind of stuff that I like to see, and that's the kind of stuff that people are enjoying. And even if you have a look at, like, say, the Thor films don't take themselves seriously. They've got serious beats within them, but they're hilarious. Like, they've got silly characters like Korg. Like, everyone loves Korg.
Yeah.
And if they made like a game that was like it's like a Guardians of the Galaxy game, but it was Thor, and it had that same story kind of beat with the silliness and the stupid humor, the Taika Waititi humor that he puts into those things, like then people would play it because they love that. They love Korg's humor, they love the characters and the way they beat off against each other. But for me personally, on some of these superhero games, they just take themselves too seriously, and that's what I don't want the whole this like be the hero type thing. That doesn't bother me. And it's just, again, there was a lot of things that didn't change in Spidey 2 that I hated from the first one, like the MJ slow ass missions and the terrible side quests and the fetch quests and the like all that stuff was it was still in Spidey 2, and I was like why? And then they gave their reasons, and it sounded even worse. We wanted to make MJ OP, so like one of her zap things could take down an enemy, whereas you have to punch him 45 times as Spidey to take out the same person. Like, I was like, oh god. But no, it's getting back to Suicide Squad. It looks cool, but with everything that's coming out next year, and the amount of games that we're going to have to get that aren't on Game Pass as well. And that's another thing this year. Like, Game Pass has helped because there's been so many more third-party games that have also been coming out this year that are must-buys or must-plays.
That is true.
We would have been broken. We would have been absolutely smashed broke if there wasn't Game Pass there, because realistically, who can afford to get 2 or 3 major AAA first-party games every month for the entire year? And that's what pretty much we've had this year.
Yeah.
And most of them are must-plays. If you think about it, you've had Spidey 2, Diablo, Starfield, Forza, you've had the Dead Space remake, Resident Evil remake, you've had
Hogwarts, you had
Hogwarts
Jedi
Legacy,
Survivor, Final Fantasy 16, Zelda,
Final Fantasy 16, Lies of Peace, Zelda, Mario, everything that combines. Like, if you
Alan
actually
Wake.
just took out, if you took out the game subscription services from that didn't save you money, and you were trying to buy that, you'd be spending thousands of pounds last year.
Granted, most of these games didn't come out on Game Pass. I felt, honestly, in the first half of this year, I didn't play that many Game Pass games. There were a few indies in there, like Planet of Lana, and in the first half, and Ravenlock, games like that I played. And then, of course, Redfall,
Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush very early, true.
Yeah.
But the heavy hitters came in the second half with, of course, Starfield and Forza, and where you, again, I do agree. Again, Game Pass, not taking away anything from Game Pass. I love it.
And if you were smart enough this year, like I was, apart from Jedi, because I did buy that.
Yeah.
If you were smart enough, then you would have waited for Dead Space, especially if you had Game Pass, like I did. And I went, listen, I've played the original Dead Space. I know this one's getting a lot of plaudits, but I'm waiting for it because I know this is going into Game Pass.
It's going to go, with EA.
Matter of time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, later on in the year, we got the Ubisoft Plus announcement, and the Ubisoft Plus hit Xbox, so you could play these games on Ubisoft Plus. So there was all.
But no one has Ubisoft Plus.
A lot of people a lot of people I know are getting it for a month that they want to play a game and then cancelling it, thus saving money.
It's
a lot of people did that for Assassin's Creed Mirage.
I don't know anyone who did that. I actually was stupid enough to buy it. I wasn't stupid because I enjoyed it. I thought it wasn't a full priced game. It was a $50 game, and it was definitely worth it. But
much like me and you, though, we're both exactly the same. The reason we enjoy Game Pass a lot isn't just the AAAs, because there is a lot of indies we thoroughly love throughout the year that drop into there as well. And honestly, if in terms of money-wise, as much as we love indie games, it's hard to keep up with the amount of indie games and AAAs releasing in a year if there wasn't a subscription service that helps that. Because we're adults, we've got bills to pay, we've got houses to pay for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a second income in my household, so everything that I have to cover is me. And then whatever's left over, can then I maybe treat myself to 1 or 2 additional things there, and then that's it. So I'm like, okay. And people have to budget that way. And then you've got families of kids and things like that. And then you've got to think, okay, well, this game's coming out, and the kids might love to play this new Mario, or they might want to play this new thing. And I want to play this thing, so I want to buy a game. And then we've also got to do this and this and this. You've got to think of all the things on top of that. So if it wasn't for sub-services this year and next, it's physically impossible to keep up with.
I agree. Subscription services are awesome. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, man. Let us move on to another one of the major topics I actually wanted to talk to you about. And that is that we celebrate this week, the 3-year anniversary of our current generation consoles. Yeah. On November 10th, the Xbox Series X and S came out, at least in most countries. The PlayStation 5 had had different launch dates in different regions. Here in Germany, it came out on November 17th, which is actually tomorrow. But so yeah, the consoles turn 3 years, and with that, I can't believe that, honestly, because that it's already been 3 years. So we almost halfway through the current generation of consoles, and actually, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. Of course, I wanted to know your thoughts on how have you seen this generation in general, and of course, specifically, how did Xbox perform in the first 3 years? How did PlayStation perform in the first 3 years? So there's a lot to talk about, and of course, we want to hear your guys as well. Here in the chat. How are you feeling about this, Chen? Maybe we start a little bit more high level before we go into the specifics of Xbox and PlayStation, because obviously this was a troubled start for everyone. They launched in the middle of the pandemic. We had like the first 6 months of the pandemic behind us, when the or 8 months or so when the consoles came out. We never thought that the pandemic went on for another 1.5 years after that, and with that, of course, a lot of issues arise with the working from home transition. We all have experienced it. Now we're kind of used to work from home, but at the beginning, obviously, there was an issue, especially for game developers, and probably a lot of people as well. It's not that special. Sometimes when we talk about that, I feel like we put the developers on a super high pedestal, and everyone had to deal with these issues. It was not just the developers, but so at the same time, the games industry got like the biggest growth it's ever seen, because people were at home. People enjoyed playing games, and a lot of studios and publishers hired a lot of people, and we've seen the outcome of that, particularly this year, where gaming isn't growing as much anymore. Gaming isn't, even though we had the fantastic video game year, we don't do these record numbers than we did in 20 in 2021, and that's why we've seen so many layoffs this year. So it was a troubled start, and that also led to the fact that consoles were hard to get. For the first 2 years, both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation were really, really hard to track down, because of the logistics around the world and the chip shortages and everything. And that's why a lot of these games came out longer than expected as cross-generational games. It's only been this year, in the last 6 months or so, where we really have seen the transition from cross-gen to current-gen only games. Games like Starfield and Forza and Alan Wake and now Baldur's Gate and so on are the true first current gen only games. So how do you feel about that? Do you think it's been a good generation so far?
Now listen, if you're taking and even then, this year has been a great year, has been a fantastic year for gaming, one of the best years in gaming. However, a lot of the games that released this year, specifically from first-party studios, were those that were delayed from last year. So knock-on effect, the entire generation's been like that. And we haven't really taken advantage of any of the tools or any of the consoles we've got as yet. Still haven't. We're 3 years into the gen, as we know. And I don't think any of these machines have really been tested. We've had some really nice-looking games. Alan Wake, most recently, is a beautiful-looking game. Fantastic, in fact.
It actually uses some of the tools now.
Exactly. We've got mesh shaders in there for a change.
Yeah.
But in general, Have these consoles been utilized? No. Have we had the high level big hitters that we had potentially last gen? When we talking back to back, granted the tail end of last gen was ridiculous because PlayStation just went on a roll of releasing phenomenal games like every other month. And Xbox had some truly outstanding games last generation as well, and obviously we had the last Gears and everything like that there as well, which was phenomenal. But we haven't seen these consoles tested yet. We've had both companies make several mistakes with regards to what they're doing with the community and pricing and subscriptions and canceling things and starting things up and changing the pricing on things. We had the whole debacle with Xbox Live Gold getting increased before they reverted it. And then they scrapped it Gold entirely. And now we've got Xbox Game Pass Core. Thank God they scrapped that. We've been telling them for years. We literally told them for the entirety of the start of this generation, get rid of Gold. It's useless. Eventually they listened. Gold was renamed to Xbox Core. And they give people 25 games with the Xbox Game Pass Core, which is, to be fair, pretty decent. But even then, the pricing structure were like, I'm not quite sure. You're probably better off just sticking on with Ultimate or Game Pass Console.
Yeah.
And then you had the thing with PlayStation Plus and its subscription service getting remodeled, and then the premium one just looks pointless. The basic version also is pointless. Extra is the only one worth having. So we're both in this kind of weird in between thing of Xbox having a section that is pointless, PlayStation having a section that is pointless. And then we've also had the generation so far, and this is a thing. We've also had the generation where Sony have managed to engineer the increase in price of games. They were the ones that started it. They were the ones that started paying for upgrades. Like, okay, if you want to upgrade your game to the next gen version, you're gonna have to pay 10 on top of the fact that you've already paid 70 for the game. So technically, the game's 80, not 70. If you're upgrading your game. And then now games are now notoriously 70, 80 as a standard. And then we look at, and shout out to Alan Wake, by the way, Alan Wake 2, who didn't, and they went all digital. And because of going all digital for Alan Wake, the game's actually less. You can pick the game up for 54. And sorry, 54, 45 even, I think I've seen it for digitally. So great. Thank God. I'm glad one developer's doing that. Remedy's released a AAA, high-quality game in the middle point of this generation that is critically acclaimed that isn't $70.
Yeah.
It's below that. It's pricing structure from last gen. Less than 60.
Yeah.
Tremendous. If they can do it, they can all do it. I'm sorry, but it's true. Remedy can manage to sell a game like that for 54 or less, which is, like I say, I've found it 45 in other places, or 40 in some cases if you look hard enough. If they can do that, everyone that's releasing a single-player game can absolutely do that. I'm sorry, but they can. We know that. That's been one of the major bugbears, especially in a recession.
Just about increasing the profit. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
All. Yeah.
But even then, we know, the developers know, the studios know, the profit margin that they make on that tiny little price increase is so minimal. It's so absolutely minimal. Like if you're increasing by 5 or 10, in the grand scheme of things, the amount that you make per unit is absolutely minimal. By the time you've got the fact of the distribution, the digital licensing, the marketplace extras, etc.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, but it is. The actual slice of that, the actual slice that they get for that extra 10 is literally pocket change.
I mean,
they're doing 5 million units. 5 million times, by the time they've had the cuts out of it, it's about 50% of that £10 increase goes.
I mean, it's a 16% increase, right? That they did, and that basically directly converts into revenue or earnings, and that's actually quite a significant margin. The question really is how many games that you didn't sell. We don't know that. because of the price increase. But yeah, it's a profit thing. You can argue. I know this argument always comes up, but games take longer to make these days and are more expensive. Yeah, while that is true, that's a factor. I agree. If smaller studios like, well, Remedy isn't particularly small, but they don't have the big publisher behind them.
Yeah.
They have changing publishers. They are basically indie, yeah. If you want want that, to label it that way, it's others can do it as well. But yeah, let's talk about PlayStation and Xbox. How did they specifically do this gen? Because maybe let's start with PlayStation first here. I mean, PlayStation, they started this gen with, in my opinion, really an awful way of communication to the fans. It was not just the price increase, which, you could argue whether Sony were the first or Take-Two. They were in the same ballpark, but in terms of the platform holders, they were the ones to introduce this increased price. At the same time, they straight out lied to their customers with "we believe in generations" and things like that. It was really not a good conversation. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, we are going to see Xbox outperform PlayStation in many games because on paper they have they do have the significantly weaker hardware." Yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, okay, this is the time for Xbox to shine." And then PlayStation comes out, having this awful disconnect to the community, and then announcing, it was about a year into the gen when they announced their future strategy with games as a service being the main route and everything. But they released good games in the first 2.5 to 3 years now. They launched the console with Miles Morales and the Demon's Souls remake, and ever since they continued their streak of major releases almost every year up until this point. They had Ratchet and Clank, they had Forbidden West, they had God of War, they had their heavy hitters come out, and then so in general they started this generation well. The games performed very good, especially in the first 2 years on the platform. We've talked about this on the podcast many times. Why Xbox isn't real in not just a few cases even underperforming with the third-party games, where the third-party games just ran better on Sony's platform, whilst having the obviously weaker hardware. So it was this really weird thing, but then it became so obvious that they are still living off their laurels, and that they are still living off the way that Sean Layden paved. And now with Jim Ryan, this whole ship, it really doesn't look that bright for the future. They have no first-party game announced for 2024. They had only one major game this year with Spider-Man, granted a good one, but it was kind of the last game that was just in the pipeline anyway, and now they are transitioning over to this games as a future kind of first-party roadmap, and there's really nothing exciting in 2024. It's not that they don't have any first-party games, but nothing that excites anyone. Not even the PlayStation fans are excited about the foam stars and whatnot. And at the same time, this year, Jim Ryan left. They had other major people seeing a departure there, and they still don't have a new CEO, and they won't have until at least April next year. That's clear. We have no idea where the ship is going. They have also launched a lot of hardware. VR was a super flop. VR2 was a very, very big flop for them. And they are dropping it like hotcake. It's like there's not even anything remotely exciting announced for the VR. They just launched the PlayStation Portable, their earbuds and things like that, where you can tell, okay, they do want to be Apple in gaming, Then they had the you already mentioned that the PS Plus relaunch with the subscription service. That isn't too bad, because if you're not subscribed to Game Pass and you're only on PlayStation, you can still play a lot of good games in there, but not having day one just makes it feel not as valuable as Game Pass really is. And you can tell that they are not really behind this idea of having a subscription service. They also launched the cloud streaming things. They moved over to PC releases in this gen, and you can tell they are trying to play catch up to what Xbox set in motion in 2017, 2018, when they launched Game Pass. Game Pass is really not a new thing, for Xbox anymore. Game Pass has been out or launched in 2017, and xCloud was, I think that was 2018. Someone in the chat can correct me, but it really and they have ever since 2015 transitioned over to games coming out on PC and play anywhere. PlayStation still doesn't have that either. You at least can carry over your save files from console to PC, vice versa. Nothing. They're trying to play catch up in terms of these really like innovative ideas and features and offerings for the customer base. They're trying to play catch up, but they are kind of stuck in this limbo where they are holding on to what made them successful in the first place while not moving along with the time, where it's just not about playing on one singular device. The entire entertainment industry has gone this way. When you used to buy a CD, you were able to play that on your home on your CD player, and then a little later you got the portable Discmans and so on. But you know what I mean. And now you can play your Spotify account on your PC, on your TV, on your smartphone, on your tablet, on whatever. And the gaming industry is going in the same direction. People want to play on multiple devices. They have multiple devices that are capable. Might that be through cloud? Still don't see cloud as a big thing that the masses are using. But you can definitely tell that a lot of people transition over from console to PC, and the handhelds, the PC handhelds like the Steam Decks and the Lenovo and the ROG Ally, they have been massively successful. And I think that this is a trend where Sony is really not prepared right now. They're trying to get there, but they're doing it so slowly and trying to play catch up. They do the same with the services and subscriptions. They did it, but they didn't really believe in it, and you can tell they're not behind it, and it just feels like they're trying to catch up. And the same goes, of course, with ongoing games, and now they try to do that. That's the one thing that they really tried to do, but they lost track of what their community actually wants. And so, I think PlayStation had a good start in the gen. The console performed better than expected. Well, by now we know that a lot of these things might have to do as well with the parity clauses that they have in their contracts as well. It's not like, some developers had the choice, but at the end of the day, they started good, but their future really doesn't look exciting right now. So yeah, before we move over to Xbox, what are your thoughts on PlayStation's generation so far?
Yeah, so we believe in next generation.
I think that will
No, you don't.
that's one of the statements that will haunt them for forever. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's very similar with the TV thing that haunted Xbox for many years. Yeah.
And from the very outset, we knew it was a load of shit.
Yeah.
Absolute crock. Within a month of it releasing on one platform, which was the PlayStation 5, it's next gen, it's been made super, it can only run on this. If it wasn't for the PlayStation 5, it wouldn't be able to run, blah, 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 blah. 1 month later, PlayStation 4 version. And then again.
Yeah.
Started with Horizon Forbidden West, then God of War Ragnarok, and then every version got a previous gen version every blinking time. Gran Turismo, you can't do this without this, and you can't do this without
the magical SSD, man. The magical SSD.
Magical, as if it does anything different to the SSDs we've had on the PC for the last God knows how long. It's just an SSD. It does absolutely nothing. All it does is transfer data quicker than a regular hard drive transfers data. That's what it does. That's all it does. It finds the item immediately as opposed to scanning a disk. That's the difference between a regular hard drive and an SSD. However, you can get very fast hard drives that find that data almost as quick as an SSD. So if you get a really good hard drive that's got super high revs per minute that can find that data quickly and transfer data quickly, and you can get them up to 54 gigabits per second and higher on regular hard drives, you can get them to almost match the performance of an SSD. And we all knew this, which is why we're telling them they were talking absolute waffle when they were saying this game can't run on here. And then, lo and behold, the famous Ratchet and Clank run came on PC, and even Digital Foundry said, listen, with a good, up-to-date hard drive, this game does run, yes, but these are load screens like we had told everybody. The jumps between worlds were simply just load screens. That's all they were. The difference is if you have an SSD, that load screen is minimal or nothing because it takes a lot quicker with an SSD to transition from one world to the other, which means it can transfer the data really quickly and pull through the information in order to load that world almost simultaneously. Not quite. If it was simultaneously, you wouldn't have the jump at all. It would just be in, out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was in 2 seconds and out. In a second and out. Which means it does have to load. There is still a second of load time there that it has to do in order to generate something on the other side. Difference between a hard drive, of course, as we know, is that it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. It means it can run. The game can run on a previous gen thing. It just means the difference is it would have only ran realistically on a PlayStation 4 Pro. It wouldn't have ran on the original PlayStation 4 because the hard drive wasn't good enough. Fine. Understandable. But can it run on previous gen? Absolutely. Of course it could. Of course it could. It can. They just chose not to. It was just a load screen. The game in itself, fantastic. But it was that was the theme of PlayStation all the way through. It was banging these false information marketing beats all the way through. These inaccuracies and incorrect things, taking advantage of their player base and taking advantage of the consumer that don't know better to drive sales. And again, they're an organization that want to drive sales. They want to create units. So you can't, in one side, you're thinking that's a smart tactic because they're going to take advantage of the fact that people don't know better and get them to buy their units. Or this game can only run on the PlayStation 5. If it wasn't for the SSD, it wouldn't work. Blah, 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 blah. For anybody who doesn't know better, they're going to believe the marketing hype. Of course they are. It's exactly the same as Xbox saying, we're the most powerful thing in the world. We're amazing, blah, blah, blah. On paper, you are. Are you proving it in the games that you've produced? No. No. You can't bang around this drum that you're the most powerful, and we'll get to Xbox in a bit, but the same can be applied to both of them. You can't say something, realistically, you can't say something, because if it went to court, if enough people took PlayStation to court for the marketing hype and the marketing beat that they said, this can only be done on this, and then it came out, and then this can, and then did it. That is in sales mis-selling, which you can be fined for.
Yeah,
you can be sued for. It's a form of mis-selling. It's a form of misrepresentation of the product that you have. So as much as people don't want to kind of, it's not that bad, it's just sales, etc. No, realistically, if needs be, it is a form of mis-selling because it's false and inaccurate information that has convinced somebody to make a purchase that they wouldn't have automatically purchased in the first place had they known the truth. That's mis-selling. But again, it's had all over the place. Again, it's slapped on the boxes, 8K on the front of the PlayStation. Yeah. Why? No one's playing in 8K, and you've got one game that plays in 8K. It's The Tourist. Yeah. That's an indie game that runs at 8K, 120 frames, but it runs at that on Xbox as well. So it makes no difference. It's a voxel art game. Realistically, there's no AAA games that are playing in 8K. None. No. You're not going to get any AAA game that's playing in 8K for another 20 years. You're not. And even then, it's not going to really take off. Why do we need 8K?
Yeah.
You show me somebody who can tell the difference between 4 and 8K. When you get past a certain pixel count, you're literally like, what? Like, what? You cannot do it. It is physically impossible. There's that many pixels on the screen at any one point. It doesn't look any different. It looks zero difference, especially when you've got a good screen. So, again, another pointless marketing ploy. But then, like I say, with PlayStations, I also feel, and people can agree or disagree on this one as well, but the quality control on some of these PlayStation games on launch this generation has been below standard compared to previous generation. When Horizon Forbidden West came out, that game was broken.
I don't know.
It was.
I played it at launch, and honestly, it was like
in comparison to Horizon Zero Dawn on PlayStation 4, in comparison to most of the games that launched on PlayStation 4 at the tail end of last generation, and the quality control that PlayStation had with their games, in comparison to what they were used to and the high bar that they'd set themselves, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about completely broken. I'm talking about in comparison to the way they'd released their games previously. Now, if you're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, got the original God of War remake, talking about all of the games that released at the tail end of last gen, the bugs and the quality control there were you didn't see anything of them. And Horizon Zero Dawn came out, and because it was cross-gen, I think it had this issue because they'd lied about it up until a week before, and they were like, okay, it's coming out on both. I knew quite a few people, including Sante, who was playing it on PlayStation 5, and he was having significant issues with it, like clipping into things, getting stuck in things all the time. It just generic things that quality control stuff shouldn't have been there, that weren't the case in the previous title that they'd released. It was just a slight lack of care. And on the PS4 version, it was just not optimized. It was frequent pop-ins, frequent data asset streaming issues where it would start an in-game cutscene because that's how this game works.
I have played it and at launch before all the patches came out, and yes, there was a little pop-in, but even
you played on PlayStation 5 at launch, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I played on PlayStation 5. Yeah,
I'm talking about the 4 here, but primarily for me on the 4 Pro. On Horizon, the data asset streaming, the pop-ins, that was the only game that I've had to stop on the tail end of the PlayStation. God of War Ragnarok, I played all the way through, no issues, ran perfectly. It wasn't taxing the system, which was one thing that confused me, because The Last of Us Remake Part 2 Sorry, The Last of Us Part 2, even though they probably will get a remake.
Yeah.
The Last of Us Part 2.
Next year, and you know it's going to be included in the Game of the Year.
It's inevitable.
Inevitable.
Last of Us Part 2 and Horizon Forbidden West absolutely almost tore the roof off with the fan that was chugging away in the PlayStation 4 Pro. God of War Ragnarok didn't do that, and it had almost no issue. In fact, God of War Ragnarok had no issues on PlayStation 4 Pro. Horizon Forbidden West had significant issues for me. That was the only game where I've put it down because it didn't run well. Again, in terms of the data asset streaming, it was a case of when the cutscene started on PS4 Pro, for instance, a character would come on screen, and about 3 or 4 seconds later, then all of the fidelity and all of the details would pop in. So you were left with these like smudgy faced, like plasticine characters for like 3-4 seconds, and it would go boop. then all of it would pop in, and I'd be like, Jesus, that is jarring. And it was every scene, like every time they did a scene with characters would talk to you and things like that on there, it would be exactly the same thing. And I was like, I cannot do this. Like, this is driving me nuts. And when I was like riding along the world, then it would be like pop and pop, pop, and like all the grass would like just suddenly pop in, like just as you get into it. I was like, I can't do it. I'm waiting for this game. I'm going to have to wait for this game, like when I've got a PlayStation 5. And I've got it on PlayStation 5, and obviously it's been patched since then, and it runs smooth and it's fine. Yeah. Hallelujah. Because, God, hey. But it's little things, and even most frequently, Spider-Man 2. Insomniac have... Definitely not. I mean, yes, you've had these silly little characters and NPCs in the previous Spider-Man that people made fun of, like the boat people, where it was just like a square, a rectangular person, like NPC, right? Ignore that, because that's just a guy that you should never have seen from that distance, and someone went really close to that NPC guy. Aside from that, like the actual quality control of Spidey 1 and Miles Morales was substantially better than what was in Spidey 2. Again, you didn't have issues, but it was quite obvious this time around by the sheer volume of the amount of people that were coming across issues, whether it be the game crashing significantly. Like, again, Uso Vinny, I don't think he watches this, but Uso Vinny himself, he didn't have bugs per se. His main issue with the game was every time he finished a main chapter main story chapter, as soon as he finished it, the entire game crashed, and he'd have to boot the game back up. And that was every time he finished a main story thing. And it was like, but there was more and more people talking about it. And that's the quality control thing. And I'm like, it can tell Insomniac are under a lot of pressure because they're the only ones putting games out. But put it that way. But I think PlayStation have also...
Again,
I think they've took the pedal again.
I think with Spider-Man, and the same goes for Horizon, a lot of people were intentionally looking for bugs. And if you're intentionally... Yeah, come on. 80-90% of the stuff that was posted online, people intentionally looked for it. I do agree that we have. I do agree that we see a lot of games released not in the ideal state. It's not just a PlayStation issue. It is. We have that across all.
I was going to say before
we see that everywhere. But it's really. I've played all these PlayStation games, and honestly, most of the stuff that people pointed out is really not that bad. Like Horizon, I can't judge how it ran on the old consoles and the last gen consoles, but I can also not judge about any Xbox game that came out and ran on the last gen consoles. It's just the cross-gen thing went on too long, and it's not just simply a PlayStation thing. And honestly, a lot of the bugs that we've seen in the PlayStation games weren't that big of a deal. Like, I had one issue with Spider-Man in my entire playthrough where an NPC got stuck in a...
Boxy, I'm gonna have to say this though. Me and you have always been very lucky when it comes to bugs in games. I'm the same because let's face it, both of us played through Cyberpunk on
Yeah.
launch and it had no issue. It was broken as shit for most people.
Yeah.
It was.
I didn't have no bugs, but I didn't have any of the game-breaking bugs. Yeah, let me put it that way.
I still had cars floating into the floors and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's
so. I wouldn't point that particularly out to PlayStation. I think that's more a general thing the gaming industry has.
Yeah, but the
seen
only
in this gen that we have broken games at launch.
I'll get to Xbox. Yeah, I'll get to Xbox as well. I'm highlighting it.
But it's also the third parties. Look at games like Jedi Survivor coming out, or even Baldur's Gate. Like Act 3 was almost unplayable at launch. We have this is a general issue. It's not a PlayStation issue per se, that we don't see the same quality control anymore. Like
that's what I'm kind of getting to, but I have to, and I will when we get onto Xbox. They're not getting away with it either. But when we get onto Xbox, I will highlight them. But overall, what I'm kind of just getting at here is the quality control is definitely took a nosedive.
Yeah.
And that is across the industry, but again, PlayStation have set themselves a really high standard anyway, going on from last gen. So to me, it was more of a case of, listen, Xbox has notoriously had some quality control issues, and they've had these issues, and the industry's had these issues, but PlayStation have set a high standard previously.
That is true.
Which is why, to me, it's a little bit more of a PlayStation. Come on, like you need to pull your finger back out again, get some of these things under wrap, because notoriously you were one of the ones that produced games that didn't have these issues, regardless of what console you put it on.
Yeah,
they were good. And then you take a look at PlayStation going on to PC this year, and some of the games that they released on PC, and the quality control there was like obscene. Like Last of Us Remake went on. Jesus Christ, the state that game was on PC. Yes, that wasn't developed by an in-house thing, and they sub-farmed that off to somebody. But that's not the point. It's still your game. It's your IP.
Yeah,
that's your quality control issue that you need to get, and you can't tell me they didn't see that coming. Now, if we're talking about PlayStation as a brand, not just the console, we'll talk about the consoles themselves as well. I have to get into the design choices behind this fucking console, because Jesus Christ, come on. Like, we're in the third year now, we've just got a refresh that looks like something from Wish. Right? It looks like the GS5 that people joked about years ago, where it was like, oh, do you want to get the GS5? It's like £100 and it comes with 400 Android games. It looks like one of those like super high gloss quality things with slats in the middle. It looks like a knockoff version PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
That's more expensive. But even then, the monolith that they produced originally, like, with so much free space in that thing as well. Like, there's so much free space in that thing. It is almost an empty box for the most part. A giant circuit board, huge fans, vents, like weird sticky up fins, and it's just an absolute eyesore. It's an eyesore.
Yeah,
you don't realize it until you own it, just how big it is.
I think what? That was like the biggest criticism of the PS4 was how loud it was, and it was like when they designed the PS5, they really wanted to make sure that it runs as quiet as possible, and they went a little overboard there.
Yeah.
That's I do agree there. I mean, I like the console in general. I do like the controller. I like the vibration stuff they do there. The DualSense.
What I don't like, the UI. The UI is quick. The UI is fast.
Yeah, but
it has many issues.
Yeah.
The older organization, the whole thing is a mess. The storefront is terrible. Like
the way how you manage games on the console is just
terrible.
But yeah, overall, I think it's a good console that performed okay. Actually good, better than expected. Let me put it that way. But yeah, man, let's move over to Xbox.
Yes.
So Xbox launched also in the middle of the pandemic, and they heavily advertised the console at the very beginning as the world's most powerful console. Then the console came out with no games, even though Xbox went on a shopping spree back in 2018.
Yeah.
And I know 2018 to 2020 isn't probably really much time or enough time to develop any of the games, but they launched.
No, they did. They delayed their biggest game.
Yeah, they had the
A
Halo
month before
thing.
release.
Halo was supposed to launch with it. We remember that reveal, the backlash. They delayed that an entire year, which in hindsight obviously was the right choice. I'm not saying that, but yeah, they definitely planned their launch differently. They wanted to have a game. They didn't have one, and they didn't have an exclusive, at least, for the first 9-10 months of the generation. And then they had a couple of good months. Psychonauts came out, which still wasn't exclusive, but yeah, we give them that. By the way, fantastic game, my game of the year that year.
Still for me.
And then they launched, obviously, the two heavy hitters with Forza Horizon and Halo, and everyone was like, yeah, now Xbox started the generation a year later, but now they're getting where they're supposed to be. In the same first year, we've seen, the narrative of the tools not being ready, and the console really didn't perform as everyone expected it. It's just a fact, yeah? The world's most powerful console was constantly outperformed by the weaker PlayStation 5. I mean, again, in hindsight, we learned that through the ABK deal case that they have that parity contracts out there. But parity doesn't mean underperform, and a lot of things were blamed on the tools not being ready. We knew AMD was a big part in it as well, because a lot of their drivers weren't up to date, which, by the way, the different topic is weird, because the Ally suffered the exact same thing. The thing came out, didn't really perform the way it was supposed to, given its hardware specs, and now you got like a dozen of AMD driver updates, on it, and now it runs really differently and performs a lot better. But the Xbox suffered that same fate, and you can say what you want. At the end of the day, the same or very similar AMD hardware was also in the PlayStation, and Xbox definitely did not deliver in the first year, actually in the first 2 or 2.5 years, on this promise of being the most powerful console. It's no matter how you twist it, people didn't have that feeling anymore. And then I think the low point in Xbox history happened after Halo Infinite came out. They had almost 18 months of nothing. No major game. They had the Pentiment in there and Hi-Fi Rush. Even though Pentiment was critically well received, actually barely anyone played it. Nobody talked about it. Hi-Fi Rush was different. With the surprise launch, nobody expected the game, and it was a surprise drop in January where nothing else came out. Everyone was excited. But that's not what Xbox promised to gamers. They promised high-budget AAA blockbuster titles, and they haven't delivered one in almost 18 months up until Redfall. And then Redfall came out the way it did, They had to delay Starfield, they had to delay Forza, both of them were... And Redfall, all of them were supposed to be last year's games. Then they were delayed into the first half of this year, and then delayed to the second half of this year. And again, delays are always a good thing if it helps the quality of the game. But at the end of the day, Xbox fans were left with a very big dry streak. The console performance wasn't where it's supposed to be. No major releases for almost 1.5 years. And no other platform holder has ever had such a dry streak before. At the same time, we had the ABK deal, which generated excitement in early 2020 when they originally announced it, and then dragged on, and it took them what now, a year and 10 months or so to finally close it, and we still haven't seen any benefits out of it because none of the games have come to Game Pass yet, and so on. And I feel like this was really a low point for Xbox. Nothing went the way it was supposed to. They had 23 studios already prior to ABK this gen, and still they had this exceptionally long dry streak. And they have the on paper significantly better hardware, and we haven't seen any of that come really to fruition up until, let's say, the summer this year. Now, finally, it feels like Xbox is at that point where they were supposed to be 2.5 years ago. Where their roadmap looks fantastic. And that's really the difference in between PlayStation and Xbox this gen. I don't feel that Xbox had a great generation so far. If you look up until the point where Starfield came out, we had 2 major releases, first-party releases with Forza Horizon and Halo in this entire gen. 2.5, almost 3 years into the gen. 2 noteworthy major releases and 2 AA games with Hi-Fi Rush and Psychonauts. And that's about it for this gen. Luckily, they had Game Pass. Game Pass really kept them alive so far this gen. And the weird thing to me is, if I look back at the 3 years of PlayStation, as I said, they started well. They had the heavy hitters continuously come out. I'm not sharing, honestly, the same sentiment about the quality thing. Maybe that's just because almost every game comes out broken these days. But they had the heavy hitters. They had their God of Wars and their Spider-Mans and their Horizons and so on. But their future is really... There's really nothing exciting in the roadmap outside of Wolverine, which is earliest a 25 title, if so, and so their future really, the rest of this gen, at least what we know so far, we know that Naughty Dog is working on something, and Bend and Sucker Punch and so on. They all working on something, but it's really not sure when we will see that. It feels like we will see those kind of games that people actually want might come out more towards the end of this gen, 2, 3, 4 years out now. And Xbox is the exact opposite. The very exact opposite. They didn't have a good first 3 years. I think you can't really argue against that. They didn't have the generation as they wanted it to be. And now with Starfield and Forza, we are at this turning point where we can now see, okay, now we have that, what actually was promised to us 3 years ago. We have that roadmap where we get a continuous streak, a continuous stream of quality AAA games. Hellblade is around the corner, Avowed is coming, and so on. And we've seen Fable and Clockwork Revolution, which we talked about earlier, and so on. We have, and State of Decay, and you know it, Perfect Dark is coming, and the next Doom is coming, and Indie, and it's amazing if you think. I'm getting goosebumps talking about and thinking about the future and what we get in terms of first party. So their rest of this gen looks like it's really a settled thing, but the first 3 years, really not. And we've talked about this a couple of shows ago when all these leaks happened. What might be their, big thing for the next gen? Because I think they can't use the power narrative anymore because they've lost that trust right now. If you look at this, you have sometimes a game perform a little better on PlayStation. Now you have an Alan Wake comes out and performs a little better on. Actually, it wasn't that little, but it performed better on Xbox. But the gamers don't really have the feeling that the consoles are as powerful. Something similar goes for PlayStation as well. It's not just an Xbox thing, but we were promised these amazing consoles that can generate graphics never seen before, and now you see games on the Unreal Engine 5. The first games come out, and either they run at a resolution that we had like in the 360 gen to early Xbox One gen, or we don't even get 60 FPS anymore. So many games come now out. Actually, more games came out with 60 FPS performance mode early in the gen, in the first 2 years of this gen, than they do now. It's and we see that the power narrative really wasn't delivered. And I wonder if when we talk about next gen, if the power narrative will actually be like the major selling point. It was the thing. That was the one slogan that Xbox had, was the world's most powerful console. Yeah, they wanted to sell that console on the power narrative. I'm not sure if they will be able to do that again. But yeah, I hope not, because I love that stuff. But you know what I mean, yeah? So I think this is really an interesting generation so far. I don't think it has been the best so far. We had 2022 was really a downer, and not just for Xbox, but for the entire industry. That obviously that's all like the fallout from the pandemic. But the future now the rest of this gen looks, in terms of third party and in terms of on the Xbox side of things, looks really bright. I can't wait to play also the heavy hitters from some of the third parties that will come over the next years that we already know of, where we know Dragon Age, probably a next year game, and things like that. It's also super exciting. And again, Xbox, since we're talking about Xbox right now, so different from Sony. Not a good first 3 years, but it looks like they will have an awesome rest 5 years, because that's what the generation will be, 28, yeah. The next 5 years, insanely good, and PlayStation is completely vice versa. They had really a good start, first 3 years, but the next 5 years, at least what we know so far, really doesn't look that interesting. So what's your take on Xbox, man? I've been going on for way too long.
No, it's all right. It's all right. This is where we kind of summarize things and summarize them well. I mean, you spoke about the power, the shouting the power from the rooftops for ages, but again, the only way you can back that up is by showing what the games can do, and they didn't have the games, and still haven't had the games that have really shown what the tech can do. The only one that you can really think about, push comes to shove, that's actually showed what the technology is capable of, isn't even a game that most people play or have played, and it's Fight Sim. It's the only one that's really pushed the tech to a point where you think that was never possible on console previously, and now it's possible to play on console. Not only is it possible to play on console, but this is like it's a perfect merger of what cloud technology can do and console technology can do.
Yeah.
It's merged together real-time air traffic, real-time weather systems, real-time. The entire world's mapped in a one-to-one scale. You can go point A to point B, and it's all photorealism, and it's a juggernaut of a game. It's 250 gig all in. It's the biggest game that you can install on any platform. But it's still now technically the only game that's really shown what the power of the console and cloud combined can do, and that's something that they were shouting from the rooftops initially. how like we're talking about the cloud all the time and talking about cloud merged with games and how we can do that. And it's the only one really to show what the capability is of. When we're talking about actual first party games that have come out, where single player experiences or even multiplayer experiences, Halo Infinite was delayed because of critical feedback from the fans when they saw that opening trailer. They were like, the game looks fun, but by God, does it look? It looks outdated. Graphically, it doesn't look anywhere near where it should be. So they pushed it back a year. They polished the graphics up a little bit. Still, it looks good. Does it look amazing? Does it stand out? Is it a showpiece for graphics? No. So again, it didn't require it, but it was again another cross-gen game played on both. So that was another issue. Then you have a look at the lack of lineup, and because they had nothing at launch due to Halo Infinite being pushed back, then you had the issue of the completely terrible first opening year for Xbox, where they had nothing, and the game that they did have as their marketing rights, which was Assassin's Creed. Why can't I remember it? It's the Viking one.
Valhalla.
Yes, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Because of that, and even when that launched on the console that they have the marketing for, it performed better on PlayStation. And it took several patches for it to get to the game to a point where it was on par or slightly performing better than it was on PlayStation. So even that didn't go right for them. And then they had the marketing rights for Cyberpunk at the tail end / beginning of the generation, and that didn't go well because Cyberpunk was a broken mess. And then you're talking about the following year where they had a really good year, and they had Psychonauts, which was again cross-platform, but they had Psychonauts, which was phenomenal, and they had several other games which looked absolutely great and played great. But and that was including Halo Infinite when it launched. When it launched, everyone loved it and they were enjoying it, and it was getting big marks for the story and the single player.
Campaign was well received, yeah,
well received. They loved the multiplayer initially, but then came the issues again. Then the next year kicked in, and Xbox again had nothing to release. But not only did they have nothing to release, but Halo Infinite then started to fall apart. Then you had zero content for a 10-year games as a service game. You had zero maps. The seasons that were coming out were terrible. You had nothing there. There was no content.
Yeah,
people were finishing the season in 2 weeks, and then there was nothing getting done for it. Then there was a lot of networking issues, and then there was a lot of issues online where you were going against really overpowered people that were playing it, and the matchmaking wasn't great. So you were getting kind of matched up with really good players, even though you were terrible. So that didn't work out too well. And people just got burnt out by it very quickly. And as fun as it was when it initially launched, the shallowness of the offering on the multiplayer was immediately apparent. And that game just took an absolute nosedive in popularity. That didn't help them at all. And it's took 2 years on from that point to get to a point where it's around. Now,
yeah, it's really good now.
Really good.
Tons of content.
They've just launched a Halo 3 remake pack thing for the multiplayer, where it's a whole playlist with remade maps from Halo 3 and all that stuff. And Forge is now becoming a massive thing, and they've got tons of Forge maps in there and tons of mods, loads of community created maps and stuff going in there, and remakes, and tons of content on the online now. Happy days, but it took so long to get to that point. And that's kind of been the story for Xbox this generation. It took so long to get things in order that we're at this point now where it's like, right, we're 3 years into the gen. The only games that we've celebrated this year are games that should have released last year. And even then, we're talking about Redfall, which was terrible. at launch. I don't care what anybody says. The game performed poorly. The story was meh. Like, we played it in co-op. We had this boring ass mission where we had to go and just find things for an hour. And we were thinking, okay, there's going to be a big boss at the end of it. Nope, that was it. And I was done. I was like, right, oh god. And I was like, this is what we've recorded for gameplay footage.
Yeah.
Fetch quest. Great stuff. Okay, never mind. And then so that didn't go well. And then the performance issues and the pop-in and the texture streaming and the game just was a massive letdown from the off. After a big, it wasn't even a hype. It was just, this game looks really intriguing. Looks really interesting. If they do this well, it could play really well. It's a vampire world. It's like an RPG vampire world. It's got tons of different mechanics, and you can go invisible. And they made it look so much better in the gameplay that they showed off than what we played. That was the letdown. That was why the game was a letdown, because it looked so much more interesting.
Yeah.
And when we got into the world, it just wasn't. It just wasn't an interesting game, unfortunately. It was just an okay, if you're super bored and you've literally got nothing else to play, you can play the game.
Yeah.
But does it do anything for you? Are you going to miss it when you're not playing it? No. And again, some people are going to enjoy it. Some people are going to enjoy it, and all power to them for enjoying it. Not knocking you. Feel free to enjoy whatever you want to enjoy. But ultimately, we have to call a spade a spade. The game did not do well.
It's unquestionable. There were people out there enjoying it, and kudos to them. But generally, this game didn't do anything. It was a miss, and it created nothing but bad headlines. And then we had Starfield and Forza, and
well, before that, I want to get to a couple of things outside of Starfield and Forza, because Starfield launched, and I'll quickly go over that before we get into it in more depth. Starfield launched in the best state that any Bethesda games launched. Well, any Bethesda Game Studios games has launched, pretty much ever, in terms of bugs. I mean, granted, there were still bugs here, there, and everywhere.
But
we're
it
nowhere
was
near to
really,
the same level.
given the scope of the game, it was a super polished experience.
Super polished. For Bethesda, it was a surprise, because I was playing it and I was like, you know what it is? I haven't even, realistically, I haven't noticed any bugs. There's not been any game-breaking bugs.
Yeah.
The only thing that has pissed me off most recently is Xbox's new inclination to force you offline for an update in the middle of playing a game. Xbox, stop that, please. I don't know why you've started doing it. Stop it. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yeah,
recently?
it happened to me too. Yeah.
But why? Why are they doing that now?
I don't know.
It's like in the middle, like I was literally on Starfield, streaming Starfield a couple of weeks back, and I was playing the game and it just went pop. I was like, you can play offline. I was like, okay, I'll play offline then. That's fine. And then pop, and then wouldn't let us play offline again for the second time. I was like, are you seriously forcing me to update the game in the middle of the game? Are you seriously doing, like, what is with that? I don't need to install this right now. Like, this isn't a requirement for me to install this right this second. I can install this, and the game will be no different until when I've installed it afterwards. You can let me play it in this unupdated version for the remainder, and I will update it later. Nope. Xbox will force you offline. So whoever's choice that is to force that on people to update it in the middle of a game, stop it, turn it off. That's an annoying update. I don't know why they've done that. Going back to Forza, Forza is launched great. To my knowledge, there hasn't been any egregious microtransactions in there so far.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
It performs really well. It looks great. It's fun. I like the new upgrade system on there, the way they do the upgrades with the cars to give you a reason to kind of try different cars and use different cars when you're going through it. Graphically looks great. The only thing I think that does go against them a little bit is the fact that they really do need to add more tracks. There is a few tracks in there, but there's quite a few big ones missing. Like for instance, they have the Nürburgring, but they don't have the Green Hell. They don't have the big long ass Nürburgring track. They only have the F1 track. Like, that's a big miss. And there's several of these big misses where you're thinking, really? Like, come on. Like it's the biggest
Yeah,
game
but still,
you've got.
I feel like Forza really launched with a good amount of content,
Yeah,
good amount of
it did. It
cars,
did. Yeah.
and they constantly bring out new tracks as well. Just
Yeah.
this week,
And they're doing at the minute. They're
forgot the
doing the
name of the
community thing,
track,
so they're
but
letting the community. Yeah, they're letting the community vote on what tracks they want in next, which is
yeah,
good. So they can kind of they go, okay, these are the tracks we're working on. Which one do you want next? And they kind of focus themselves on finishing that one first, and that one goes in next, and then they do the same.
yeah.
So they'll constantly do that. And these track add-ons are all free, so you will get them. They're all free. You don't have to worry about that. They've just added, there's a new update came out today, and the new track went on with 4 variants of it as well, which is good. So the Yas Marina has been added with 4 versions of the track. So that's good. That's an add-on that was free and update too. But going back to something that was really positive this year, was Xbox's new revamp of their showcases. Which I really liked. Liked. Super well done. They had three showcases this year. They had the developer direct, they had the regular Xbox showcase, and then they had the third party showcase. And I mean, all 3 of them were so well produced in different ways. The developer direct was like punchy and straight to the point. It was like nice little graphics. Okay, this is the one we're going to talk about now. And they just focused on like 6 games. One of which Shadow dropped in there, which happened to be one of the best games this year, which was Hi-Fi Rush. But it was so well produced. It was straight to the point. It was punchy. Give you the dates, give you the information, give you the trailers, in and out, on the way. And it was so well done. And then you got the main showcase. And that main showcase, again, was one of them ones where it was just like, wow. And it was back to back to back. It was good old Xbox with so many positive things. It was like, look, this is Fable. Yeah. Fable's new trailer that people questioned that's not gameplay, and then the developers had to come out and say, no, that's actual gameplay.
Yeah,
like, sorry you don't believe it, but that's gameplay. And then we had Hellblade, and then we had South of Midnight, and we had Clockwork, and we had Avowed, and it was just constant, but it was so well streamlined. They didn't over talk, they didn't do it was well produced.
See, I feel like sorry if I interrupt you real quick. That's generally a big difference we've seen this gen from Xbox towards PlayStation. It's not just that PlayStation went AWOL with their showcases. They didn't have anything in 2022 at all. Yeah, and then they had this one crappy one this year that nobody enjoyed, and but it's not just the showcases, it's the general connection towards the community.
Yeah.
Xbox has always been good at that, but not having the generation as planned so far. Yeah, with 3 years of too many gaps. What they really did well, and they did it throughout the biggest dry streak ever. Is having a connection to the fans through showcases, through events, through communication. And when you compare that to PlayStation, with all the stuff that is going on now, you can't imagine Phil Spencer leaving, and then you hear no statement for half a year at all.
Yeah. Whilst you're on that subject with regards to communication, actually, which is something we both forgot to touch on with regards to PlayStation. Throughout all of the issues that has been going on with PlayStation, with their studios speaking out about not wanting to do games as a service, with them switching to games as a service, with the dry spells, with the games getting delayed and pushed back, with the developers getting let go, so on, like the amount of different bad, positive news beats. And the lack of showcases from PlayStation, and the lack of updates on first-party content, and the lack of update on the going forward. Throughout all of that, the communication from PlayStation has been absolutely terrible.
Yes,
shocking. It is completely night and day in the way that Xbox and PlayStation have done things with their community this year. And this is why we speak about PlayStation so much, is because if people didn't speak out about the way PlayStation are doing things, nobody would. because PlayStation aren't speaking. Like, they haven't said a word.
Yeah.
As dry as things are coming up, they're still refusing to talk about what is going on. And the showcase that they produced in parallel to Xbox this year was absolutely abysmal. It was abysmal. It was shocking. It was a complete disconnect, to the point where the two main games that are launching for you, the tail end of this year and the beginning of next year, didn't even get your release dates on your own showcase. Your own first-party game got its release date on Jeff Keighley's show.
Yeah.
And your own third-party exclusive for the beginning of the next year, the biggest game you've got for the beginning of next year, Final Fantasy Rebirth, also got its release date and unveiling on Jeff's show.
Granted, Jeff's show is a PlayStation show. So...
Yeah. But still, you know what I mean? That's the complete and utter topsy-turvy side of things.
Yeah.
Then Xbox, on the other hand, not only did they put out 3 amazing shows this year, you had the awesome ID at the Developer Direct, which I'm looking forward to seeing again next year.
Yeah.
I think they had so much positive feedback. We might even see another one till, you never know. It could pop up as a surprise one by the end of this year. Or beginning of next. But either way, so much positive feedback from that. They can't not do another one. That worked really well. People really loved the way that they kind of organized that. After the Xbox showcase in June, you then had the phenomenal showcase or showing that they did at Gamescom, which we attended, which was their largest ever presence. 80,000 square feet, I think they said it was. It was a significant.
It was a massive booth.
You couldn't miss it. Yeah, it was by far the biggest booth in the entirety of Gamescom.
And also, it was like the melting pot again for the community. Whenever you wanted to meet someone, everyone was like, yeah, okay, where shall we meet? Yeah, let's just meet in front of the Xbox booth. It was like, yeah, it just shows, again, a significant difference. This entire generation, is communication and community connection. And I think that seriously carried Xbox also for a good part. It's Game Pass, and it is the good connection and the good laid out roadmap that Xbox had, because through all this dry streak, we still knew, okay, Fable's coming, and Avowed is coming, Hellblade is coming, State of Decay, and Perfect Dark, and they did what Sony did last gen with the PS4. The PS4 was also not. They didn't have any major releases or the same roadmap and output in the first 2-3 years of the generation of the PS4. But Sony sold the PS4 on the promise, okay, if you invest now, you're gonna get eventually a Spider-Man and a Days Gone and Uncharted and Last of Us and so on. And the Xbox copied that page out of the playbook, and they did it really well, because back in 2020, most of the games we still haven't played any of those. State of Decay or Perfect Dark and Hellblade and so on. They were all announced. Well, Hellblade was actually announced 2019 at the Game Awards, but all the others was 2020 and 2021. They didn't really announce anything new in 2022, though. The showcase was basically an update on all the things. And then this year they announced again a couple of great things. But we knew, okay, if I invested this generation in an Xbox, I will get those games, and that's really a strong thing to do. And I feel like this connection to the community is the second big part. Like they are so in touch with what gamers want to hear. And they know what they listen. When we always say they truly do listen, and we don't have that at all on the PlayStation side of things, not even close. But
and then of course, like I say, then the tailed off the year with the little third party one. They kept it short, sweet, and they just let the trailers roll through.
Yeah,
wasn't any talking, wasn't anything like that. quite a full
It was-
couple of games that went in there. We've had updates on some of them games since. It
And
was
now
really
the Game
well done.
Awards are around the corner, where they got completely snubbed. Since you bring it up with the game showcases,
Yeah.
do you think they will have something at the Game Awards?
Oh, another thing for Xbox as well this year. The massive turnaround, and again, in the grand scheme of things, for compared to other consoles, it's still minute, but for Xbox, it's huge. There's a huge turnaround on support for Japanese and Chinese developers, and
Yes.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Massive difference this year, and we're talking about the fact that, like in the chat, we were talking, someone's playing Persona 5 Tactica, which has just dropped.
Yeah, the
And you've
entire
got
Atlas
Persona 3
games,
Reloaded, all the Persona games. You've got all the Sega games on there. You've got
the
Judgment
Yakuzas,
and Like a Dragon, Yakuza. You've got, and then they've got the Tokyo Game Show, and they announced tons of mad games that are going on there that are all Asian games. And the turnaround there, and getting Square Enix back on board, and getting Octopath Traveler back on there, and getting Final Fantasy 14 on there, and the what looks like an improved relationship with the new CEO over on Square Enix in order to get the Final Fantasy franchise back to Xbox as well. The turnaround, the Sega relationship and partnership that they've got with them, it's all starting to, the hard work that he's put in, that, and we have to give Phil Spencer prop here, because he's been like, it is taking time, but I am working on it. And every time he said, I'm working on it, I am working on it, I am working on it. Like, I'm hearing it and I'm working on it. And every time he said that, it's all started to trickle through. Everything that he's been working on is starting to come to fruition.
It might take longer than you want it to, but it's all
happening.
It's
clearly
happening.
not easy.
Yeah,
clearly not easy. And it's took a long time to get 14. We're talking a long time to get 14 on. It took literally not only just the entire generation, but the tail end of last generation to now to get 14 onto Xbox. And even then it releases the beginning of next year. It is the turnaround there on the Asian market, although it was small in the grand scheme of things. For Xbox, it's a huge major plus. The way that they've managed to transform their relationship with the Asian developers and Japanese developers is exactly what they need for the remainder of this gen and going into whatever next gen will be. Because ultimately, whatever happens with the Asian market right now is what will kickstart the next generation, as opposed to the tail end of this one. Tail end of this generation is kind of more, right, okay, we'll get our feedback into it, we'll start building things up again, we'll build that relationship. To the point where it's then the beginning of the next gen, you're going into it with solid and firm relationships with the Japanese and Asian developers, and you can really kickstart potentially launching the gen next time with a big Japanese or Asian game, with a big, like, maybe even turning the tables and launching with a Final Fantasy, or, you know, something mad can happen like that. Like, we're seeing some of these games launch into Game Pass for the first time, like Persona games launching into Game Pass is not something people would have thought about at the beginning of the gen. But now we're getting two major Persona games launching into Game Pass day one.
Yeah.
It's mad.
It is. The Japanese support has been turned around, and like you said, a lot of things take a lot of time. And but they did at the very end of the day, they did deliver on the things that they promised. Yeah, it just took them. The execution took a long time, maybe too long time, but yeah. But Dutch, we are 3 hours into the show, and we still have a lot of community questions here today. So
let's go for it.
I would say let's go for it. Yeah. So yeah, at the end of the show, we usually answer a lot of community questions, and you can write them in each and every Wednesday, either on Twitter or YouTube, Discord, Xbox, PlayStation, wherever you want to send those in. You can do that. And this week, we have a couple of good ones. The first is coming from Dave Ramos, who's actually also in the chat. And he asks, which turn-based tactic game would you like to see? Fallout Tactics, Gears Tactics 2, new XCOM, new Wargrove, or a different IP? to get the TBT treatment. Happy Thursday. So, I mean, Gears Tactics in there, absolutely. I loved Gears Tactics. But I feel like that
There's one missing.
they outside of Halo Wars, they have never.
I was going to say Halo Wars.
Yeah, they've never done something with that IP, and I would love to see Halo extended into other genres. So, what about you?
See, I'd just rather have another Halo Wars personally. I'm not a massive tactics fan. I'm not a massive tactical game fan outside of Age of Empires, Age of Mythology. Like those are my only real tactical games that I like, because that's also kind of a world building game. Like you're building your world, and then you're going to war. Whereas a lot of these tactical games are just the war side of things, and I actually quite enjoy not just the base building, but like you're building the base and you're building your farms and you're managing things and you're creating things, and this is a huge walls around here and things like that, and the things like Gears Tactics, etc. As cool as they were, and I did enjoy it a bit. It was just you go here and you shoot this, and you go here and you shoot. It was very simple in what it was. It was a good game. It had a good story, but it was like in comparison to an Age of Empires, for instance, which is far more in depth.
Well, the one is turn-based, the other is real time. Of course,
yeah.
Real-time strategy games are always about micromanaging everything. And by the way, Dutch, I haven't talked about Age 4. How can I not? The Age of the Sultans is out. The first true expansion with new story content and everything. Dutch.
Yeah.
You know what I will be doing this weekend? I don't have to tell you. I actually booted it up yesterday, downloaded it, but then my internet crapped out and I wasn't able to actually play it because it took all night to download it. But man, you know it's gonna be a lot of Age talk next week. So I know I shouldn't probably say that because then people won't tune in, but absolutely, man, I cannot wait.
You've got to do it sometimes.
Next week, guys, next week. It's Age time again, and I'm excited. All right. The Big Bridge writes in and asks, what's your favorite video game soundtrack of 2023 which wasn't nominated? I actually have to look again real quick.
Hi-Fi Rush's soundtrack was phenomenal. That didn't get nominated.
Yeah, but it was nominated.
For soundtrack?
Yeah.
I'm sure
Hi-Fi Rush, yeah, it was. It was Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate, Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, and Zelda.
Oh.
For best music.
Outside of those, probably Starfield then.
Yeah, I mean, Starfield obviously comes to mind. I think a really iconic soundtrack. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the main theme alone, goosebump inducing, but also, you know, when you walk across these empty moons and you have that epic orchestra getting in as soon as you find that pirate base or whatnot, and it's the music there is fantastic. But I also want to highlight Sea of Stars. Yeah, because I feel like for such a small team to do an original soundtrack that captures this 16
the essence of the essence of that era,
and really, really good. So I would go one of those two, Starfield or Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
Great question, though. Onid Will asks, how is Spider-Man nominated for so many awards? I think we covered that pretty much.
Yeah.
And Happy Cloud Gamer, actually, he was in the chat up until 5 minutes ago because he had to take a rain check because it's getting late in Sweden.
Yeah.
But it's a great question. Bear with me because it's a little bit a longer one. So my question is, after the ABK deal is now closed, now we can move on to upgrade xCloud with official mouse and keyboard support. I saw the xCloud team talking about small steps with Resident Evil 5 from 1880p to 1440p and later 4K. But with most streaming services out there, and PlayStation has 4K now, is it time for the Xbox to wake up and upgrade its resolution? And if so, when can we expect it? I hope the 24th. And should Xbox do a deal so we can run xCloud on any Android device? Is that possible with Google?
I would say for xCloud, you do absolutely not. You do not need for a cloud streaming service for it to be in 4K. I think it's a waste of resources. I think you need.
Why not have it as an option? If you have the proper internet connection, why not do it as an option?
Yeah, if. The issue is first and foremost, and we've even the PS Portal, the first and foremost thing you need to concentrate on is the bitrate. Like the bitrate in general between the two needs to be absolutely on point, to the point where there isn't like issues of artifacting on screen, which both of these services have in abundance. Artifacting. Like that, when you've obliterated that, then fair enough. But you need to obliterate artifacting. You need to obliterate any lag. Like there are far more things that I think should take precedent first between these services. Now, the only service that's really done a good job on that was Google.
Yeah,
Google's Stadia actually, in terms of its streaming.
I haven't tried it, but I hear a lot of good things about Sony's solution as well. Apparently, the image quality is pretty good.
Yeah, kind of.
I haven't tried it yet.
A lot of people, I've also seen, but a lot of the reports that aren't from certain media sites are embellishing things. For the ones that aren't up Sony's rectum, have mentioned about the artifacting and the solution not being the best in certain scenarios and having some lag issues and the sound sync having popped out. So there are still issues to be ironed out. It might be a little bit more refined in certain situations, but it is a remote play device. It's not a cloud streaming device.
Yeah.
In terms of
the cloud, portable is not the cloud. See, I feel like I don't get it either that it's not there as an option, because if you look at other streaming services, I mean their biggest competitor in the streaming space right now is GeForce Now, and they've had it also for a long time. And honestly,
they charge a chunk for the top tier one though.
They do.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's out there. Yeah, and if you have the proper internet, why not have it as an option? I feel like they can do that or should do that. The question is really, is it worth it for them? Because I don't see cloud taking off the way they expected. Yeah. xCloud really is not new. It's out there. Yeah. I think it was 2018 when they launched xCloud. So it's out there for 5 years now, and it really has not caught on. There are some people using it. I used it actually quite a bit when I didn't have an Ally yet. I played a lot in bed, actually. Never on the mobile reception because almost unplayable, at least with the mobile reception we have here in Germany. Even in 5G, really not good. At home, when I'm in my Wi-Fi, yes, it's a great experience. Latency is really if you're not playing a really fast-paced, like a shooter or something game, you barely can tell the latency. It's like really a fantastic experience, runs the games I have played via cloud run really, really well. Now that I have the Ally, don't need it anymore. Honestly, I haven't played xCloud ever since I have the Ally. I bought that in July or so. And but I don't see that many people are actually using it. During the CMA ABK drama, we learned that in the entirety of the UK, I think it was 5,000 users of xCloud. And you've seen that is the reason why they were so quick in selling the publishing cloud publishing rights off to Ubisoft, because it's really not a business and it's not a growing thing. Yeah, it's cloud applications in other spaces. Yeah, like industry computations, like OneDrive services and stuff like that, where they have seen tremendous growth over the years. xCloud really isn't taking off, and you could argue in multiple ways here. They don't have a proper monetization model for it either. Yeah, you can only get it through getting the Xbox Ultimate Game Pass tier. It's really not that you can just get xCloud somehow else or so. But I don't think that cloud gaming is going to take off as quickly as they hoped, and it's gonna take a lot longer. And they feel like they realized that, and I'm not sure if they see that as a proper investment. They could take the same money and invest it either in their studios, in the next hardware, in other things. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think what they should rather focus on, instead of getting 1440 or 4K, is just ensuring that, because the service it's kind of stale. It's not grown, but it's not sinking. It's kind of in the middle ground. It doesn't require, like, when you sit at that point when you're thinking, and as you said, they're really quick to just pie off the cloud streaming rights in order to get the deal done. So that tells you how much they value cloud right now as a service, and how much that they can see cloud really growing for them. So with that in mind, what they should focus on is just a stable and high quality service of what they have, which means 1080p. At the minute it's 720, 1080p, but
they have 1080.
Get rid of the artifact.
They have 1080.
720.
No, 1080.
Kind of. On PC, not on mobile.
I don't think so. I think they have 1080 on mobile.
Mobile's really 1080. Really 1080. The territory goes to 1080, but it's really 1080. A lot of the times it's 720. But even then, what you need to get rid of and what you need to do is just make it a stable 1080p, 60, zero artifacting, zero lag, really, really, really low latency on mobile and on PC. On PC, the experience is far better than it is on mobile.
I've never tried it on PC.
See, it's really good on PC. The browser version of Game Pass.
It's really good on mobile either. Again, if you are in a Wi-Fi. If you're in a Wi-Fi.
If you compare even the PC or even the Xbox version of the cloud streaming, so when you don't want to install a game, you just want to quickly try it, which is what I do for cloud. I'm just like, we'll try this, and then if I'm enjoying it, like some of the indie games, right? Okay, if I'm enjoying it, I'll install it and I'll play it natively, so I'm getting the best experience of it. So I've done that a few times, but even then, the cloud on console and the cloud on PC is a much better experience than the cloud is on mobile. And I've played mobile on both Wi-Fi and 5G, and I'm talking 5G with max bars. And it's a whole different experience than it is when you've got a decent connection on PC or console for the cloud. So it's a mixed bag. What I would rather see them do, instead of focusing on 1440 or 4K, if they are going to do anything to that, is just stabilize the entire thing so that on mobile, you've got a nice solid 1080 60 with no latency, no artifacting, no lag. Boom. That'll be a happy little experience then. You can enjoy your games, and because recently people have noticed they're starting to get quite a few queues in trying to play games recently across the board on both the UK, the US, Europe. People are noticing a lot more queues for trying to play games on the cloud, for getting in and having waiting lines. So solve that issue. And I think that's personally, I think that's where they should leave it. Don't invest far too much money in this thing because it's not going to take off. Focus on other areas. There are far better areas to be focused on. Yeah.
All right. Last question of the day. Andrew Sauce writes in and asks, if I hold my breath, will I collapse before we get Baldur's Gate on Xbox?
It depends how long you can hold your breath for, because if you can hold your breath until the 8th of December...
well, it's not the release date. That's when they're going to announce the release date.
Possibly.
Yeah,
they said it was launched in December.
It's launching in December. Man, I actually wanted to talk to you about that as well. They announced, obviously, hey, we are still good for a release in December on Xbox, and we're gonna announce the date at the Game Awards. And now, you know what automatically came to my mind is Shadow Drop, Game Pass, exactly. Game Pass Shadow Drop of Baldur's Gate announced during the Game Awards. It's out now in Game Pass. Go download. The game of the year.
I can kind of see Xbox. I can kind of see Microsoft and Xbox having the backlash from what happened with Baldur's Gate and the issues that it had and the time it's take to develop it. Even though, funnily enough, this news story of the Baldur's Gate guys finding 35% more headroom because of developing on the Series S, which has ended up making every other version of the game more performant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Series S, by the way. So because of that extra time that they've had to do, they've found a loophole now where they're like, whoa, look at what we found from doing a little bit more development. So Series S saves the day. I think Xbox could very well have said, right, this is all like, sorry for the whole delay in getting the game on in the first place and being such a big game. They've kind of went, right, okay, we'll drop the bag, we'll get this in Game Pass. And I think that's, because right now they know the release date, the Baldur's Gate guys. They're like, if you want the information, tune in on such and such. They could easily have dropped the date right now. They know it. I think there's a reason they're doing it at the Game Awards. And it's not, why would you just release like a game that's already out? Why would you to announce the Xbox release date at the Game Awards if there isn't something else that goes along with that?
Yeah.
It's a game that's out. It's already got loads of awards and things like that. I think there's a reason for them just like putting that date out there.
See, I feel it makes so much sense to launch that game now into Game Pass, because if they just drop it on Xbox, I don't think it will do well. If they launch that as a full price title, $60-$70,
I mean, I wouldn't buy it, but if it's in Game Pass, I'm playing it.
Yeah, you would. You know you have to walk in a turn-based game, and you told me that this is a no-go for you.
Like, it's not a game. It's not a game I would buy. Yeah, but it isn't a game I'd buy.
See, and I feel that's the thing with a lot of players, because by now everyone knows it's turn-based. I truly believe that a lot of people were surprised. They've seen the screenshots, they've seen the trailers, and they thought, oh yeah, this is like, high fantasy, third-person action RPG. And then it's a turn-based strategy RPG, But the thing is, it had its massive success on PC. Even on PlayStation, and that was a month or 6 weeks after it came out on PC, it launched on PlayStation. The hype was already not there because Baldur's Gate is not an IP that is known by console gamers per se. It's always been a PC, game. And now the game's out for half a year. And typically that's when you get the bigger drops of of games into Game Pass 6 to 12 months after they come out. It gives them this second wind. If everyone's starting to play it on Xbox and talks about it, people will automatically catch up on PC again. And on PlayStation, the Game Pass effect, we talked about this, happens all the time. And it would just make so much sense, because if they just drop that now in December on Xbox, I don't think it will do that well.
Yeah.
Because the people that really wanted to play Baldur's Gate, most of them have.
Yeah.
But with Game Pass, especially it being a genre where maybe a lot of people don't know if they're gonna enjoy it, but they heard, oh, this game is so amazing, it's going to win Game of the Year. We all know it. It's probably going to be Baldur's Gate that's going to win Game of the Year. And if you drop that in Game Pass on the stage of the Game Awards announced, after it's getting the award, dude, that would be huge. That would be really, really huge, especially going into the Christmas period when you want to sell the stuff. I could see that happen. All right, our pineapple lover here in the chat, our good friend UK Desirous, says we need to hurry up. He needs to sleep. I actually do have to sleep as well. It's half to midnight already here. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up. And by the way, one last thing. A couple of weeks ago, I got so many messages when I made fun about UK Desirous, Desi Baby, about him loving pineapple on pizza, and I got like tons of messages. How do I talk to the community, and how can I make fun of our listeners? And I was seriously surprised that anyone takes this serious. I consider Desi, I know him for years now, and I consider him a good friend here in the gaming community, and of course I'm busting his chops. That's what we do.
What friends do. Friends bust each other's chops.
And it's not my fault that he sleeps, in a pineapple-covered bed sheets and just dreams of pineapple and pizza all day long. So
drinks it and smokes it.
Exactly. So, but anyway, Dutch, let's wrap this show up. It's been an awesome show. Almost 3.5 hours in. I want to say a big thank you to our amazing community. Great discussions here in the chat. Super appreciate the super chats and the channel members that support the channel. And you guys are just amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time to tune in here, discuss with us gaming and everything. I know time is valuable, so I truly mean it. Appreciate you guys sticking here with us. Darren Hauser in the chat is supporting Desi Baby here now with his love for pineapple on pizza. But yeah, it's been an awesome show. We're gonna be back next week, but probably not Thursday. Because first of all, you are climbing a mountain that day.
Yes.
For charity reasons. That's the only reason I'm not making fun of it. But and the second reason is I know it's Thanksgiving next week in the US and everywhere where Thanksgiving is celebrated. So we might move that around. We need to figure out whether we do it Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. We haven't decided yet. So probably not at the same time, but we intend to do a show. And other than that, Dutch, let everyone know where they can find you and what you've coming up, man.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch. That includes PlayStation, Xbox, etc. And Twitter is Wondering Dutch X now, as everybody should know by this point. But yeah, we've been doing our charity drive for Special Effect. Just finished doing the 24-hour straight live stream on the weekend, which was good. And the next one that we're doing for special effect is Mountain Climb, which is next week. So that is Thursday, Friday, and then I'll be, once I've done that, be back to usual schedule. But other than that, we do dual streams of gameplay 4 times a week. Yes, 4 times a week, as well as a podcast every Wednesday. So Wednesday is the midweek mix-up podcast. Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, usually we do gameplay live streams. So I'm in the middle of debating what to play next. Cyberpunk is usually the Monday, Tuesday game, and weekend game is potentially going to be Elder Scrolls Online, but I'm still debating that right now. But either way, dual streaming on Twitch and Xbox. Twitch and on YouTube every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and the midweek mix-up podcast on a Wednesday. And of course, you can find me here usually every Thursday for the World of Gaming.
All right. So, again, a big thank you from my side. And good Lord, I'm a little distracted now again with the chat because
I love the pineapples everywhere.
It's like we are a pineapple pizza lover magnet show. So many people. And ADM says I found today a mango pizza, and I bought it right away. And oh, good Lord, I've never seen that.
I don't even know what to think about that.
I don't either. You know, the only fruit that belongs on pizza is tomato. That's the only kind of fruit.
Yeah, I'll agree.
So, but yeah. All right, guys, let's get to bed. It's getting late over here in Germany. Thank you so much again. We see you guys next week, and don't forget to game on.